Hey everyone, what is up? And welcome back to my Higurashi When They Cry Let's Play. Today we'll be recording episode 24, and this is going to be the 5th episode of chapter 3. I don't know why I almost just said chapter 5. So the last episode was really interesting. So things are starting to show signs of picking up. We saw Keiichi start to ask some questions that he probably should not have. He said some things to Shion about Satoshi that he shouldn't have, and she took it very seriously. And he kind of just parroted some of the things she said to Rena and Mion, and Rena did not take that very well. Mion seemed to understand it was mostly coming from a place of curiosity, and just told him, like, look, you should probably never bring that up again, right? And also, definitely don't bring it up again around Rena. Because Rena takes this stuff serious. She really believes in Oyashiro-sama's curse. She believes she was a victim of it at one point. So Keiichi started to worry that things aren't going to be the same, and so I think it's let's go see if he's right. Let's see if there's going to be a permanent change in how that group is interacting. It really wouldn't shock me. Let's go ahead and jump right into this.
おはよう、ケイチ。あら、ゆうべは何時に寝たの?
Bro could not sleep. I did not sleep well last night at all. My mother could tell from a single glance. I had the worst dreams. Nightmares, very ominous dreams, one after the other, again and again. I woke up after each one, but could never even remember a fraction of what they had been about. It really be like that. But it was like those dreams were predicting something unpleasant. Yeah, I'm playing Higurashi. Real shocker. And I woke up in a terrible mood. Hey now, every day has been calm and fun before today, right? Those days should continue on, unchanging. And yet, anxiety was the only emotion growing within me. Why was that? Nightmares reflect your own anxiety. They show an uneasy mind, that which you wouldn't admit to normally. Yesterday, I remembered the ominous conversations about Satoshi I had with Shion, Mion, and Rena. Right. My mind felt like it was in a black fog, because we had talked about that. If I'd lived every day without causing a fuss, my reward would be ever more peaceful days. I understood that. So why did I cause such discord? But, now that I thought about it calmly, a simple verbal slip on my part couldn't possibly change the world. Yeah. As long as I'm sorry for doing it and never talk about it again, there's nothing that anyone can blame me for, right? Besides, how would my fate possibly change just because I talked about that? Nothing was going to change. Yeah, nothing would change. Nothing would change. Nothing would change.
気持ち悪い笑い。
Yeah, bro, you probably look like Mion right now.
寝ぼけてるなら顔を洗ってらっしゃい。
So, my big worry is that somehow word of this is going to get parroted to Satoko, and that she doesn't take it well. And then that really does change things. I mean, we made that promise to Irie to never make her cry. Perhaps he loses his cool, right? Satoko wants nothing to do with us, right? And these are all just hypotheticals, of course, right? But, like, I could kind of see that happening. Especially because of the way he went about it. He didn't just ask. He even went and was like, is there any proof? Right? Do we have any reason to really believe he transferred? Where's the records? Right? And I'm like, when you ask like that, it really feels like you're just beyond just simple curiosity, right? It's like you're actively questioning, right, what the status quo is in Hinamizawa, right? And I mean, I'm not saying that should, get you killed, like it probably will. But it can cause some issues, right? For sure. And I mean, I can only imagine it would be upsetting for Satoko, for Keiichi to be in that spot, and, to hear that Keiichi was, really, truly strongly believed, apparently, that, Satoshi didn't just run away and that he's not coming back, right? Is there any evidence that he transferred? I feel like asking that kind of implies, I don't know, like, I don't know. In his eyes, I think he was trying to imply that he ran away, but I could easily see that being interpreted another way. All around, just bad stuff. I have a feeling this is gonna be, this is not gonna go great. I'd finally cheered up enough to smile, and Mom slapped me right back down. I was irritated again. There wasn't much time left before I had to meet up with Rena. I frantically started to get ready to go to school.
いってらっしゃい。車に気をつけるのよ。
気をつけるほど車もいないよ。南沢には。
Chapter 1 be like. I dashed out the front door. The morning air was far more refreshing than the water on my face. That's right, Keiichi Maibara. You're sorry enough about it and reflect upon your mistakes, that's enough. Well, it's more about whether the person who is not happy with what you did believes that's enough. Now let's pull yourself together and get to school, and return to fun, enjoyable days, where everyone laughs, plays, and just has a good time. I'll be nice to Satoko as an apology, too. Yeah. Wasn't I supposed to be her nanny until Satoshi got back? Well, good luck with that. Rena too looked nothing like she had yesterday when she said that weird stuff. I could only forget, then I could still act like nothing had happened. So I called out to her with all the energy I could muster.
Oh! おはよう、レナ。相変わらず早いな。おはよう。おはようございます。
There was little time before the same old morning homeroom began, but Satoko and Rika-chan were unusually absent. Uh-oh. Maybe they went to play somewhere? However, looking over and seeing none of their things, so it looked like they really hadn't come to school.
あれれ、あの二人が遅刻なんて珍しいね。
Rena seemed to be enjoying herself, thinking about what their excuse for being late would be. Mion said something nonsensical as well, imagining how funny the reason they were late must have been. I'd only come to school to see their energetic faces, since I figured it would get rid of these feelings I have. But the load on my chest remained where it was. It wasn't very pleasant at all.
おはようございます、皆さん。委員長、号令。起立。
Our teacher finally arrived. Then, finally, I heard the pitter-patter of footsteps running down the hall. Platter. Rika-chan was the first to run through the open door. And then Satoko didn't come.
遅刻ですよ、フルデさん。北条さんはどうしましたか？
It was unusual for Rika-chan to be late, but equally unusual for Satoko, a ball of energy, to be absent at all. Everyone's eyes were wide at the series of strange events.
さとこはちょっと遅れるかもしれないのです。
熱でも出ちゃいましたか？
The teacher walked over to Rika-chan and they started talking in hushed tones.
リカちゃんが遅刻でサトコが欠席なんて珍しいこともあるもんだよ。
This is obviously... doesn't bode well.
そうだね。だけど、さとこちゃんどうしたんだろう。風邪かな。
Why now, when I most wanted to see Satoko's energetic face? The unease that had been building since last night tightened within my chest.
ケイちゃんは心配しすぎ。年頃の女の子にはね、どうしても体の都合で具合が悪くなっちゃう時があるの。
みーちゃん、それ男の子の前で言うことじゃないよ。
Mion laughed indecently. Normally I would laugh along with her, but right now I just didn't feel like it. Mion's trying to keep things light, but... Homeroom ended, and we went to talk to Rika-chan in the short time we had before first period started.
よう、リカちゃん。遅刻して怒られて、かわいそうだな。今日は俺がなでなでしてあげよう。
I was very aware of my gloom this morning, so I strove to keep my tone cheerful. I petted Rika-chan's head the same way she always did, but she didn't cheer up at all.
みー。
さとこはどうしたんだ？風邪か？
For instance, she got a fever from playing around too much yesterday. That had been a response I would have accepted it in a flash. But the atmosphere around Rika-chan felt somehow heavy. Yeah, I can't help but feel like word got to Satoko and she did not take it well, and she's just not composed enough to come to school. That like my initial assumption. It was a little weird, and actually made my unease worse.
ほらほらほら、男の子には話せない事情ってのもあるんだから。ケイちゃんはお席へ戻って戻って。
Mion, acting just like a club president, pulled me back to my chair. Rika-chan's gaze immediately fell back to her desk, and she hung her head gloomily. Rika-chan had said something odd, that Satoko might be a little bit late. They were living together, weren't they? Then she would have known for sure. She wouldn't have said might. I didn't understand why she was absent. That made me all the more anxious. Well, I think the might here is like, it's indeterminate, like, if she's going to be able to come to school. Like, she might be able to, like, whatever it is, might be able to make time, right? Or, like, find a way to get to school, right? And, you know, in my example, right, if, you know, for my assumption of, you know, she just isn't composed enough, you know, if she gets composed that enough that she thinks she can go to school, she'll come. If not, she won't, hence might, right? Damn it, what's going on today? It's like we started off on the wrong foot, and it wasn't going to get any better.
どうしたのかな、ケイチくん。今日はなんだか朝から元気ないよ。
Rena noticed how I looked and whispered to me while the teacher wasn't looking.
そんなに俺元気ないか？
うん。見てるレナまで元気がなくなるくらいに。
I thought of jokingly saying, then don't look at me. I didn't even feel like doing that.
レナに話せること？
Man, after the way you freaked out yesterday, no, that's really not.
どんな悩みかわからないけど、聞いて力になれることなら聞くよ。
I mean, do you just like go completely blank? Like when you get into that kind of fervor? Or are we just like both pretending we don't know? I won't tease you. Rena said this, looking me straight in the eye.
昨日まで何も変なことなんか起きなくて楽しかったんだ。
Huh? Rena's eyes widened for a moment, not understanding what I meant, but she remained silent and listened.
穏やかで楽しくて毎日が賑やかで、そんな毎日が繰り返されることに何の不安もなかった。
うん、そうだね。毎日楽しいよ。きっと今日も楽しくなる。
絶対にそうなるって自信が持てるか？
Rena, feeling perplexed, couldn't think of something to say. I didn't blame her. What I was trying to say seemed a little confusing, even to me.
思えばここ最近不安だったんだ。毎日が楽しいからこそ、ある日ふっと電球が切れるみたいに突然真っ暗になってしまうんじゃないかって。
うん、その気持ちちょっぴりレナもわかるよ。
Yeah, I can get that anxiety, especially after how things went down last night. Rena nodded gently.
私たちはいいことばかりは続かないって、ずっと楽しいことの裏側を時々恐れるよね。それってちょっぴり悲しいことだけど、でもそのおかげで私たちは楽しい毎日がずっと続くように努力することを覚えたんだよ。
Yeah, just ignore everything.
そうだな。
だからケイチくんが楽しい日々がいつまでも続かないかもしれないって思うのは決して悪いことじゃないと思うよ。例えば、明日突然火山が大爆発して私たちが全員死んじゃうとする。
What kind of analogy is that? I mean, like, I get what you're going for. You're not wrong, but, you know, I thought you were going to go in the direction of, like, eventually life will take us our separate ways, or we'll have responsibilities, right? You know, no, just what if we all died in a volcanic eruption? Just really not where I thought that was going to go.
おいおい、物騒な話だな。
例えばその大災害をケイチくんだけが生き残ったとしたらどう感じる？
Okay, now this feels suddenly a lot more relevant.
どうって。
I imagined myself being that sole survivor in the ruins of Hinamizawa. Rubble and the bodies of friends lying in heaps at my feet. Why do I feel like the curse-killing chapter is going to make this a reality? It was such an abhorrent sight. Was it sadder that all my friends had died? Or was it sadder that I couldn't have died with them? I didn't know which, but I'd probably cry a lot.
胸が張り裂けるだろうな。まず、泣くと思う。
そしてこう思うんじゃないかな。こうなることが運命だったなら、昨日までの日をもっともっと楽しく悔いなく過ごせばよかったって。
Looking at it, this kind of feels like I don't know. I wouldn't be completely shocked if this is a lot about Satoko. Right? Obviously, it's all like hypotheticals, right? But you can't help but think about how... I mean, Satoko was the lone survivor, right? Right, and so she probably does have some kind of like survivor's guilt, right? I hadn't really thought about that angle until now. And could explain why, you know, she acts the way she does. I didn't want to consider such a horrible event to be my destiny, but...
思うだろうな。
楽しい毎日がいつか終わるものなら、それがいつかなんて誰にもわからない。だったら、たとえ明日そうなっても悔いがないように、精一杯楽しく生きるのが正解じゃないのかな。
そうだな。
That logic does make sense. I can get behind that for the most part.
それに気づくのはとても難しいこと。多くの人たちは日々の幸せに飽食してるよ。今日と同じ明日が訪れると信じきってるから、今日できることを明日に送る。
This section is a lot more like, I guess, profound than I had expected.
今日してやれる優しさを明日に送ってしまう。
Rena was usually cheerful and silly, but right now she wasn't like that at all. She was taking my troubles seriously. It was a little reassuring.
でも、圭一くんはそれに気づけた。それはとても素敵なことだと思う。だからその不安な気持ち、大切にしてもいいと思うの。
この不安を大切に？
そう。明日には大災害でみんな死んじゃうかもしれない。だから今日、みんなにいっぱい優しくしよう。
Again, that's such a strange way to word it, but like, I do agree with the sentiment that you never know when a relationship with someone might end, right? Or in her words, the fun times with someone might end, right? And so it is important to appreciate what you have while it's still there. Kind of deep stuff from Higu today.
本当に週末が訪れた時、後悔しないために。
レナは実践してるのか？明日みんなが死んじゃっても後悔しないようにさ。
うん。
It was such a hyperbolic conversation, but Rena just gave me a nonchalant nod of her head.
レナは楽しい毎日がたった一日を境に終わってしまうことを知ってるから、今日が楽しくても明日も楽しい保証なんかないって知ってるから、生きてるよ。精一杯。
Seemed like Rena perfectly understood all the anxiety I couldn't put into words. And on top of that, like a reliable teacher, she showed me what to do. Oh. Hey, Keiichi Maibara. There's no need to cry now.
ゆうべ、聡子の夢を見た気がするんだ。どんな夢だったかは思い出せないけど、朝からずっと不安で。
聡子ちゃんの元気な顔を見れたら安心するつもりだったかな。
Yep. She was right on the money. Everyone had been here with smiles on their faces this morning, and the murk in my heart would have definitely been blown to smithereens.
じゃあ、聡子ちゃんが来たら優しくしてあげることだね。いつもの悪ふざけでも一向に構わない。楽しく過ごすことができるなら。
そうだな。
As long as you don't take it too far, but yeah. So that even if these fun days come to an end, I'd have no regrets. I couldn't tell if what Rena told me had been comforting or just made me more anxious. But it was enough to make me think that if I saw Satoko again, I'd be honest with her. Throwing an if in there was kind of wild. It's kind of fair, but like... Then throwing an if in there makes me think like this is the last we've seen of Satoko in this route somehow. Lunchtime arrived, with everyone pushing their desks together like always. Satoko wasn't here. Despite that, we had bento boxes for 5 lined up on our desks. Rika-chan made a bento for Satoko too.
さとこ、お昼までには来るはずだったの？
Rika-chan was clearly acting strangely. Yeah. We were talking to her, but it felt like she was too far away to hear us. I'd never seen Rika-chan so downcast, so the rest of us started feeling down too. Yeah, that is actually concerning. Hey, Rena. I understood what she had said before pretty well. When we were together, we were supposed to have lots of fun so we wouldn't have any regrets if the world ended tomorrow. And yet, well, I just resolved myself to do it. Now we can't all be together. What the hell? Because it was just so sudden, wasn't it? I mean, yesterday was fun, so who could believe it would all end today? No volcanoes had erupted, and no earthquakes or fires had happened either. The cicadas were making the same noises they did yesterday, and the sun remained bright in the sky. It was the same normal day as always. So then, why? As I pondered, Rena's chopsticks reached in front of my face and stole the fried chicken out of my bento. Foolish. Should have been on guard.
みんなが取らないからレナがもらうね。
Trying to keep things kind of light.
おいしい。
I feel like that's the phrase I say most when I'm playing Higu. They're just trying to keep things light right now in these, like, tumultuous times, right? You say that several times every chapter. Oh, man. Rena tossed the entire piece into her mouth and began munching on it, her expression one of bliss.
と、おじさんとしたことがレナに先生を許すとはね。よっしゃ、おじさんはこのプチハンバーグをもらうよ。
みえ、僕のおかずがなくなってしまうのです。
Actually, kind of seems to be working for once. I feel like normally it doesn't do anything. Rika-chan, also behind the curve, smiled again and went for someone else's bento. As I sat there, dazed at how quickly everyone had changed, Rena sent a wink over to me. Come on, Keiichi-kun. Live life to the fullest. That way, if a volcano erupts tomorrow, it'll be okay.
冗談じゃねえ。最後の弁当が梅干しとご飯だけになってたまるか。それ、俺はミートボールをいただくぞ。
I stuffed the meat into my mouth and constructed a clumsy smile. I played along as if trying to fool myself. But as I did, it rapidly became less and less of an act. Satoko still wasn't here, but at some point we'd regained our lively lunchtime. We had fun, we smiled, and we fooled around. Thanks, everyone. This was definitely the best thing to do. This way, when Satoko suddenly dropped by, we could welcome her with our best smiles. The more I smiled, the more I felt the anxiety from this morning clearing away. I feel like it's gonna come
笑う
back
角に服着たるってことわざあったよな。
in a really bad way. I've never heard that proverb.
あるね。それが事実なら、おじさんは四六時中笑い転げてるよ。
レナは本当だと思うな。毎日笑ってれば毎日が楽しいよ。レナがいいことを言いますです。
じゃあ、試してみるか。
Everyone took a deep breath, then brought their faces together, locking shoulders. And then... I feel like it doesn't really work the same if you force the laugh, but... Everyone laughed uproariously from their stomachs, trying to laugh at all of the bad stuff accumulating in them. By the time our bento boxes were empty, everyone was right as rain. And if it's working. If it's working, who am I to doubt the methodology, right? We'll see if it works, really, but... Or if it was just kind of a, we'll act normal today kind of thing. Having heard our friendly banter, Tomita-kun and Okamura-kun walked up and timidly spoke to us.
前原さん、楽しくお話し中、申し訳ないんですけど、ちょっとお力をお借りしたくて。
They grinned dryly and scratched their heads.
なんだよ一体。テストの対策法は以前教えただろ。
Oh my god. What? Keiichi, relax, dog.
ちなみに、千恵先生が授業中、含み笑いを教科書で隠した時が次のテスト範囲だ。
そうなんですか?
That's not what we're here for, said Tomita-kun, elbowing Okamura-kun. Bro, Okamura was like, what? Yo, my life is a lie. I thought I had it down.
実はですね、ボールが2階の雨どいに引っかかっちゃったんですよ。前原さんなら身長高いからなんとかなるんじゃないかと思って。
Why do I feel like there's gonna be something that isn't a ball up there?
ほう、先輩に物を頼むからには何か見返りがあるんだろうな。俺は高いぜ。簡単に買収できると思うな
Oh,
よ。
come on, bruh. Tomita-kun and Okamura-kun conversed for a short time and gave their reply.
では前原さんには授業中に居眠りができる権利を与えましょう。
I'm sold.
それでどうです？
Not that I was ever the type to want to take a nap in class, but I think that would sell a lot of people.
なんだそりゃ。授業中に寝るのは俺の勝手だろ。なんでお前らに権利をもらわなくちゃならんのだ。
What, otherwise they'll, like, report it?
そんなことないですよ。今度は前原さんが居眠りしたら全部先生に言いつけることにしますから。
It turned into a threat. That goes hard. These boys know how to negotiate.
なるほど、うまいうまい。
こいつらとんでもない交渉の仕方を覚えやがって。
すみません。ちょっとした冗談っす。
ほらほら、ゲイちゃん、おとなしく後輩たちの脅迫に屈したら。
She's enjoying this way too much. And now Mio was getting on my nerves. Suddenly it came to me, and I took Tomita-kun and Okamura-kun's hands.
わかった。俺の降参だ。ボールを取ってやるから、居眠りの権利を俺にくれ。
まあ。
Even they were shocked it worked.
見ろ見よ。俺はちゃんと権利をもらったぞ。でもお前はもらってないよな。富田君、岡村君、ミヨンが居眠りしたらすぐにチクれ。
Got him!
いいな。
Bro recruited some allies. Bro knows how to play the game. Ren and Rika-chan began to cackle at Keiichi-kun's victory. I wasn't sure how the ball managed to get stuck up there, but it was planted firmly in the school building's second floor gutter. If there is a place a ball could get stuck, it will get stuck there, right? If there are kids that are playing there. That's just a guarantee of life, you know?
その棒を貸せ。俺なら多分届く。よいしょっと。
I took a bamboo pole and poked the ball with it. Damn, it's hard. Come on.
取れた。取れましたよ、前原さん。どうもありがとうございました。
The ball rolled down the gutter and fell down behind the school building. My underclassmen ran over in that direction, leaving me by myself. Mission complete, I guess. Sheesh. There's still a lot of time left until lunch break was over. Guess I should go back to the classroom. I'd absorb myself in a silly conversation with everyone and wait for afternoon classes. Just when I thought that and turned towards the entrance, someone suddenly called out to me.
どうもどうも
Uh-oh.
こんにちは。
That's like worst case scenario. I mean, the other worst case scenario was Irie. I was like, either of those two, and it's bad.
お昼休み中すみませんね。
I was a middle-aged man I didn't know. Or maybe I'd passed by him a few times and I'd seen his face, but I didn't know him. When his half-smile deepened, something within me shuddered with fear. There was no basis for that, no reason, but I shuddered. I was somewhat confused about those emotions, not quite understanding them myself. There was one thing I could say, though. Nobody but teachers and students should be at school. This person shouldn't have been here. I felt less of a tremble and more of a sense of dread, like a caterpillar, brilliantly colored in garish, bilious greens, were crawling across my forehead. A feeling of disgust that neither itchy nor gross could describe as the frizzly, dreadful hair rubbed against my brow. I didn't even want to see his face. I wanted to jump backwards and run away. An unpleasant feeling for which I didn't even know the cause. The other side of myself is nothing but questions. Hey, what are you doing? What are you disgusted by? This is the first time you've met him. It's rude to hate someone for no reason. No answers were coming. I held my silence, waiting, a damp sweat running down my forehead. When he saw that, Oishi thought maybe he was being intimidating and gave me a relaxed smile. Why is he so intimidated by Oishi? Right, is it just that he's not supposed to be here, and that he kind of is getting this idea that it means something is wrong? I mean, that's my guess. I think that's the most logical guess.
Ah, 失礼しました。
I don't know. I've already mentioned things like the supernatural, right, being kind of an element, right? And I can't help but wonder, right, if like somehow he kind of remembers his past experiences with him, right? And that's why he feels that weird dread. I don't think there's any real basis for that. But again, sometimes sometimes I read into lines too much just in case, right? To see if that alternate explanation could make sense. I think realistically, it's more like I don't think it's that. I think realistically, he would just be afraid, probably just get the idea that something's wrong. I think that explanation just makes more sense, really.
怪しいもんじゃないんですよ。ふんふん。私、沖宮警察署から参りました。大石と申します。あれ、手帳どこかな。あれ参ったな。ありゃ
He fished through various pockets, then finally found his police ID and showed it to me, grinning dryly. He may have been trying to use those clumsy-seeming actions to ease my anxiety, but I could definitely say it didn't work. Why was I this nervous? There was a reason, of course. I wanted today to be the same as before, and today didn't need someone who hadn't been here back then. Yeah, basically, right? Him showing up kind of confirms that, like, something is strange, right? He wants things to stay the same as they did, and this dude showing up in the middle of a school day for seemingly no reason, right? When he doesn't belong here, right? It's indicative that something is not going to be the same. The fact that a man who wasn't here yesterday showed up today meant that today would be a different day than those before it. Oh, whoops, I guess I could have just read the next line and they would have explained what I just said. That would mark the end of the fun and happy days. I gulped and erased that ominous conclusion from my mind. Calm down, Keiichi Maibara. It's just an old guy who looks kind of perverted and came from the police department. Don't go deciding that the fun times are over. He just came here because of his job. Yeah, just for his job. If he's working, then he would normally go to the teacher's lounge, right? The fact that he spoke to me, yes, it must have been to ask where it was.
職員室をお探しですか？なら、あそこの昇降口から入って。
I didn't want to look at this man for another second, so I started pushing things along. Oishi, however, didn't seem to have any interest in the teacher's lounge.
ああ、いえいえ。職員室にはそんなに用事はないんです。それより、お友達を呼んでもらいたいんですが。
Probably looking for Satoko, right? I mean, there was a Hojo, right? But, I don't completely remember their name, but the husband of the housewife that had been murdered, the one that had taken care of Satoko in the past.
お友達？誰です？
女の子です。北条聡子さんを呼んできてもらえませんか。
My consciousness grew faint, like I was about to pass out. Yes, my anxiety was realized. The dreadful, disgusting caterpillar was looking at me, about to crawl into my ear. Its frizzly, dreadful hair was touching my ear cavity. That's how bad it felt. What a gross description. Ugh.
警察が聡子に何の用ですか？
いえいえいえ、大した用事じゃないんです。2、3聞きたいことがありまして、ご協力をいただければ嬉しいんですがね。
Why? Why, of all people, was it Satoko? Why would a police officer come here in the middle of the day for something that wasn't important? This man was strange. I could smell it. And it smelled bad. Just a whiff of it made me want to grimace. I knew that this man couldn't possibly be here to deliver her lost wallet or anything. I couldn't imagine what he needed from Satoko, but it had to be something unpleasant. My throat stung with burning pain. Burned like a parched, creviced wasteland. The wasteland broke apart deep in my throat and brought out the words from deep in my mind.
あんたに用はあっても、聡子にはないと思います。
For someone who has quite a way with words in the slice of life moments, you really are adept at putting your foot in your mouth.
帰ってくれませんか？
Oishi probably hadn't expected that reply. He stood there surprised for a few moments, probably gonna get scary-faced. He didn't want to play bad cop, but I'm sure he will. I did as well. I hadn't thought words like that could ever come out of my mouth. Things might still work out. This guy may have shown up out of the blue, but if I drove him off, maybe I could make it so that it never happened. If I could do that, then I could get back. The peace we had until yesterday, I could get it back. Yeah, you sound like a real Hinamizawa now.
これは手厳しいな。
Not nearly as cooperative.
あなた、さとこさんのマネージャーさんですかな。アポイントメントがないと面会は叶いませんか。
話がしたいだけなら電話ですればいいじゃないですか。日中学校にまで押しかけてくるなんて明らかに異常です。
Breaking through a dam would have been the perfect analogy to use. And, you know, I will say he does kind of have a point. That isn't normal. Why didn't I like this man? This man shouldn't have been here. I needed to make it so that this man wasn't here. Childish, selfish emotions bubbled up from the depths of my mind, and they each came out of my mouth just as it had been formed. Not liking the guy was my own problem, but to say things so bluntly to him, even I thought I was crazy.
ありゃ、いちいち正論な方ですね。こういう言い方をする人は苦手なんだよな。
Oishi grinned and scratched at his sweaty throat. Even as he feigned stupidity, I could tell he was irritated. Hey, Keiichi Maibara, why am I looking for a fight with this old policeman here? It's not like he brought the gift of misfortune with him, all wrapped up in paper, right? I'll always call back to that one tip in Chapter 1 where Rena and Mion kind of called him, the harbinger of a Yashiro-sama? So I do kind of need to keep in mind the possibility that he is in part responsible for things, right? Because one thing I do want to point out, by the way, is that the case that he actually made real significant progress on was the one that was almost surely not actually explicitly tied to the Watanagashi killings and Yashiro-sama's curse, right? It was the several murders committed by Mion, right? And so I kind of think him rescuing Keiichi at the end, it doesn't really disprove anything, right? So still need to be a little suspicious of him. It's not like he brought the gift of misfortune with him, all wrapped up in paper, right? Right. It wasn't like he had brought a package of misfortune with him and was asking me to sign here, please. Rationally speaking, I understood all that. So then, why was I so... Finally, I outlasted Oishi in our game of silence, and he gave a big sigh. Then he addressed a few of my female underclassmen running around nearby. They're just gonna tell him that
もしもし、君たち、
Satoko's not even here.
ちょっといいですかな。北条聡子さんを呼んできてほしいんですがね。
My underclassmen tried to smile in reply, but I noticed the oddly stiff air atmosphere around me. It seemed hesitant to give a quick answer.
いませんか、北条聡子さんは。
北条さんは今日はお休みですけど。
Well, that's what he came for.
休み。
His face remained smiling, but his tone was clearly one of ill humor. Such conspicuous spite caused my underclassmen, who had answered honestly, to cringe in fear.
そうですか。いやはやいやはや。これはついてないです。
He was smiling broadly, but the way he laughed didn't make me feel better at all. When he noticed that his laughter wasn't getting anyone else to laugh with him, he immediately stopped.
で、君たち、ここにいるお兄さんは、
He grabbed the girls by the shoulders so they wouldn't run away and crouched down to address them at eye level. The girls flinched away from the sharp, piercing light in his eyes, and in exchange for their release, they didn't resist and told him my name.
ほう、前原圭一さんですか。
He said my full name. That was all he said, and yet I couldn't help but shudder. It was like he had grabbed me by the collar just with those words.
あなた、ひょっとして例の前原屋敷の御曹司。
What have you heard about the Maibara family?
お父さん、 高名な芸術家さんなんですってね。年に2回ほど東京の大展覧会に出展されてるそうじゃないですか。どんな立派な絵を描かれるかは存じませんがね。お母さんも知的そうな方じゃないですか。高学歴って聞きましたよ。どこぞの女子大を出られてるそうじゃないですか。あの年の女性で女子大でなんてすごいですよ。ひょっとしてお母さん、両家のお嬢さんなんじゃないですか。
Oh, wait, are they actually going to bring the Maibara family into this? Interesting. I was starting to wonder it earlier, right, in the chapter, when we had the lunch party, right, with some of Keiichi's father's, I don't want to say co-workers, but just some people who seem to appreciate his art, at least. But it really is feeling like they're going to bring them into this a lot more now, like maybe they are relevant to this game's plot. I really didn't think they kind of would be, given that they quite literally don't even they don't even like give the parents names. But I don't know. I wonder if there's a reason for that.
なんて噂が立ってるせいか。冷たい人だなんて噂が立てられてるなんてご存知で。
Now they're playing with the idea that we are from some respectable family, right? Interesting. You gotta wonder which one it is.
町内会の会合、最初の1回以外は出てないでしょう。そういうのっていけないんですよね。こういう土地では。ご近所付き合いをないがしろになんかできませんよ。
Now that is very true. A sense of eeriness slithered up my spine. How does he know so much about us already? Dude, like, I feel like there has to be something up with the Maibara family then, right? Like, it probably isn't nearly as simple as I'd been led to believe, and it explains why Keiichi was... It could possibly explain, like, stuff... Whatever this explanation is, could explain why Keiichi was targeted in Chapter 1, as well as, like... I don't know. Like, again, why he was targeted in Chapter 1, and just in general, why Oishi always comes to him, right, in these first 2 chapters. That was my first experience of true terror. I couldn't believe it felt this terrible for someone you just met, to know everything about you already. Oishi clamped onto my shoulders and brought his eyes close to peer into mine.
こういう土地ではね、敵は作らない方が絶対にいいですよ。さもないと。
Ow! Oishi dug into my shoulders with inhuman strength.
思わぬところで不利益を受けるかもしれません。因果応報という言葉もありますよ。風が吹けば桶屋が儲かるの正反対です。妙なところで買った恨みが信じられないところで帰ってくることがあるかもしれません。そうなったら嫌でしょう。
I'd imagine he wouldn't, no.
誰だって恨みなんか買いたくないんです。敵を作らないに越したことなんかない。どうしました？肩がだいぶ凝ってますね。
This is,
ちょっと揉んであげましょうか。ほら、気持ちいいでしょ。
Ow, 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 ow! This man wasn't just strong. It was like he knew exactly where to press to make me feel pain. He probably does. Ugh. Only 4 or 5 fingers were on my shoulders, and yet the pain made me want to bend over backwards. Ugh. The girls from my class were pretty shaken up, but didn't seem to want to help me. I don't blame them. Please, leave. They weren't sure if they should go call the teacher. As for me, I couldn't take the time to wait until the teacher got here. It hurts.
もうそれくらいになさってください。
Alright, Irie, clutching.
痛がってますよ。
Behind Oishi-san, someone. To my disbelief, it was Coach.
おや、これは入江先生じゃありませんか。 ご無沙汰しておりますね。ふんふんふん。
Discomforted by Coach's sudden appearance, Oishi laughed scornfully. The vice on my shoulders, however, remained as strong as ever.
挨拶はいいです。それよりも、前原くんを話してあげてください。
Oishi smiled daringly and glared straight at Coach. He didn't release me in the meantime, of course.
先生のところにも後でお伺いしようと思っていたんですよ。いつもお忙しいとかで、ろくろくお話ができませんからね。
I wonder why that is.
ええ、お望みとあれば、いくらでもお話を伺いますよ。でもその前に、令状をお持ちになってください。職務質問と任意同行は拒否できますからね。
Coach didn't display a shred of the weird behavior he'd shown at the baseball game and barbecue. Yeah, I'm sure he's done this song and dance many, many times. He stared steadily at Oishi and fought so that he would release me. His chances were terribly bad, of course. Compared to the relaxed Oishi, Coach seemed like he was being defeated mentally. It made sense. Coach had a somewhat narrow stature, but Oishi's body was packed with muscles. It wasn't even a contest. But Coach was fighting for me without taking a step back. Beads of sweat formed on his face, and though he paled, he was fighting for my sake. Suddenly, Oishi laughed and let go of my shoulders. My body exhausted, I fell right onto my backside.
前原くん、大丈夫ですか？
くそ。いてててて。
I rubbed my shoulders where Oishi had latched onto them. The pain from falling over went away quickly, but this pain was lingering.
大丈夫ですか？前原くん、ひどいことを。
くそ。いててて。
ちょっと肩を揉んだだけじゃないですか。前原さんも少し大げさすぎですよ。男の子はもう少し我慢強くなくっちゃ。
Bro. I wanted to retort, but I couldn't think of anything witty.
肩は上がりますか？痛みますか？痛みが強いようなら、ちゃんと診察をした方がいい。とにかく保健室へ。
Coach lent me his shoulder and walked beside me.
大げさですね。私に限って傷が残るような真似をするわけがないじゃないですか。
Maybe.
ねえ。私、これでも現職の警察官なんですよ。
さあ、どんなご用があったか存じませんが、もうご用がないならお帰りを。
Wouldn't be shocked if he knows exactly what he's actually here for, but...
今日のことは、今度所長さんに直接抗議しますから。
それは困りますね。
Oishi-san waved his hand sarcastically, pivoted around, and headed to the car parked by the school gates. And without turning back around, he got in and started the engine. Well, for once, I guess we're not going to get a bunch of information from Oishi. Interesting. Damn it. Who the hell was he? Damn it.
あいつは、大石クランドという刑事です。乱暴者でね、村中に嫌われている男です。前原さんも用心した方がいい。
Yeah, I think we did at least pick up that everyone in the village hates him. Kurado Oishi. Just like I thought, my gut instinct wasn't wrong. He would be the one. The one to bring on happiness, misfortune. Something that would ruin our peace. Shit. I won't accept it. All these fun days can't possibly end just because some guy like him showed up. I won't accept it. Coach seemed to be familiar with the school, so he brought me to the nurse's office without much trouble. The girls from my class came along as well, looking worried. Our teacher and the principal, having noticed the disturbance, came to see what was the matter.
前原くん、どうしたんですか？怪我でも。前原さん、さっき校庭で変なおじさんに。
Coach gently interrupted the girls, trying to explain.
いえ、ちょっと転んでひねったみたいです。大丈夫だとは思いますけど、保健室をちょっとお借りいたします。
入江先生、よろしくお願いしますぞ。
The principal gave him a deep bow. It looked like Coach was acquainted with the adults at school. He slid open the doors to the nurse's office, but there wasn't a nurse in there or anything. I'd figured. I'd never seen anyone but Chie-sensei and the principal working here. Coach didn't seem to mind the fact that there was no nurse and quickly made his way into the nurse's office. He instructed me to sit down and started washing his hands in the sink. Oh, I get it. He's the coach for the boys' baseball team. He must be pretty used to treating wounds with first aid. Yeah, makes sense.
ちょっと幹部を見せてもらえますか?
Before we resume this scene, I really do want to, look at this and just say, it really feels like this might be the route where Keiichi goes, full Hinamizawa and just kind of accepts, I don't want to, honestly, kind of just accepts things, right? Maybe not, fully, but, just wants to maintain the status quo and, isn't, trying to uncover the truth of everything. I wouldn't be shocked if that changes in due time. But, right now, I could see it. Right? I mean, this just feels like the exact type of mentality that the Hinamizawans, who are, just ignoring everything that they have, right? And I mean, the person who, kind of coached this mentality into him was Rena, right? Who is presumably not the greatest influence at times, right? And is going to try to kind of induct people into that Hinamizawan lifestyle, right? It wouldn't shock me. We've never really, I don't know. She really just seems like the type who takes all that stuff really, really seriously. So it really wouldn't shock me if she was trying to get him to think exactly this, right? Or even if it wasn't intentional and that's just how she sees things, right? That's just how the village sees things. And so that explains why they do a lot of the things they do. So I'm kind of intrigued to see if that's the direction this route is going to go.
まだ痛みます。
いえ、もう全然痛みません。本当に大丈夫です。
I rolled up my shirt and showed him my shoulder. No bruise, not even nail marks. Yet it had hurt so much I thought my shoulders would be crushed. Even the pain had disappeared without a trace. It hurt so much, but not so much as a bruise remained.
それだけあいつが慣れているということですよ。
Used to it, huh?
今度会った時は挑発しないことです。あいつを怒らせて得をすることは何もありませんからね。自宅に制服警官を連れて押しかけてきたら、ご家族だっていい気持ちはしないでしょ。
No.
それは確かに。
And neither will Hinamizawa.
しかし、何があったんです？前原さんがあいつと喧嘩になるなんて。
あいつ、里子に用事があるとか言ってきて。
え？里子ちゃんにですか？
Coach's gaze lowered and his expression clouded a bit. Somehow that gesture seemed to be saying Oishi was bound to come to Satoko. It did. And that it was no laughing matter. Coach fell silent in thought. Quietly, he took a compress out of the first aid kit and put it on me.
あの男はまだ里子ちゃんに付きまとうつもりなんでしょうか。本当に蛇みたいにしつこい男です。
Coach mumbled to himself.
付きまとう？あの大石っていうやつ、たびたび里子のところへ来てるんですか？
Coach didn't answer, but the lack of a denial served well enough. What on earth did the policeman, probably a detective or something, need from Satoko? What mistake had led a detective to cling to the sweetly smiling Satoko? I mean, probably the extreme amount of unfortunate events that just happened to fall, happen right around Satoko, right? Or not even literally in her physical proximity, right? But people close to her, right? Does that make her a person of interest? I mean, yeah, kind of, right? Is she a main suspect? Maybe not, but if it just so happens that her parents died, her guardian died, her brother disappeared, and now the person who's trying to take Sonozaki money was likely one of the few remaining Hojos, right? You can understand why they would want something to do with Satoko, but...
前原さんは、そうか、引っ越してきたばかりでしたね。
ええ、そうですけど。
お社様のたたりと里子ちゃんの話は少しは聞いたことがありますか？
Yeah, we've heard a bit. Well, I knew a few things about it, certainly.
里子の両親がダム計画の賛成派で転落事故で死んだのはたたりだって話ですか？
Coach smiled thinly and dryly. So you know. he said, dropping his gaze. If I recalled correctly, there was an accident on a viewing platform at the public park she'd gone to with her family, and her parents died. Didn't he quite literally tell you this yesterday? And then, it was just big brother and little sister. And then she was with Rika-chan and,
ご両親が亡くなったさとこちゃんとお兄さんのさとしくんはおじ夫婦宅に身を寄せることになりました。
そうなんですか。
Yeah, and then the aunt got brutally murdered. Their parents died in the accident and Satoshi ran away, leaving only Satoko to start living with Rika-chan. I'd known that much, but this was the first time I heard that they'd been brought to their uncle and aunt.
おじというのはさとこちゃんのお父さんの弟にあたる方なんですがね。残念なことに夫婦揃ってちょっと尊敬に値する方々ではありませんでした。
Coach normally picked his words politely, so when he came out and said they didn't deserve respect, it really made me wonder what kind of people they were.
さとこちゃんの両親がダムに賛成していたとばっちりで、おじ夫婦も村内ではとても肩身の狭い思いをしていましたからね。さとこちゃんたちを歓迎するはずもなかったんです。さとこちゃんたち兄弟にとってとても辛い生活だったと聞きを読んでいます。
Bit by bit, Coach told me about the numerous agonies the Hojo siblings had suffered at their uncle's house. As their guardians, their aunt and uncle sucked up everything belonging to their immediate family. Why do I keep saying aunt? I normally say aunt. Satoko and Satoshi were crammed into a small room, and their lives were laden with things that were miserable for both their bodies and minds. In the first place, since apparently their aunt and uncle weren't on good terms, there was no end to the fighting. And as if in revenge for that, whenever they saw Satoko or Satoshi's face, they would always find fault with them, scold them, yell at them, strike them, and take away meals as punishment. Oh, wow.
今思い出しても
Yeah, that's
ゾッとします。
okay.
今の元気なさとこちゃんしか知らないあなたには土毛色の顔をしてただ日陰でぼーっとしているだけの彼女など想像もつかないでしょう。
Good lord. Everything we hear about Satoko just makes it worse. I couldn't imagine it, and I didn't want to. That was how I honestly felt. But at the very least, Satoko wasn't like that anymore. She may have had a miserable life in the past, but it was different now. Something happened to change that life.
去年の綿流しのお祭りの夜にね、異常者にバットか何かで殴り殺されて、綿流しの祭りの夜には村の旧敵がたたりで死ぬと噂されてましたからね。この死も単なる殺人事件としてだけでなく、お社様のたたりではないかと村中でささやかれました。
A few days later, the deviant arrested for drug use confessed to further offenses and the incident was resolved. However, though it was resolved, no one knew whether the part about it being Oyashiro-sama's curse was true or not.
おじだって平見沢の人間ですからね。お社様のたたりを大層怖がり、逃げ出して雲隠れしてしまったそうです。聞いた話では、沖宮あたりの実婚の中の女性宅に転がり込んでるとか。
Yeah, and then she got killed too. Kind of makes you wonder if there's a tie between those two, right? And that this was also basically a hit on the aunt. Right, maybe he was trying to take money back then too. I don't know.
それで解放されたんですか、さとこたちは。
おばは死に、おじは逃げ出し、誰も兄弟をいじめる者はいなくなるはずだったんですが、まるでその後を継ぐようにあの男が執拗に現れるようになったんです。
あの男？
Then Coach lowered his voice just a bit as if being aware of his surroundings.
大石です。
大石、さっきの男。
The events that just occurred came back to me. The hard to describe, ominous sensation I'd felt from him came back to me.
あいつは少しおかしいんですよ。お社様のたたりをめぐる一連の事件はみんな解決しているのに、あいつだけがそれを認めていないんです。
I don't know, I'm still kind of with him on that. I'm gonna be honest. I don't know how much I trust Irie, right? Like, he might not be outright telling lies right now, but like, I don't know. I'm personally and part of it is just because of the Kantoku thing, but I'm trying to put all that beside me, right? Or like past me, right? Like, yes, that did objectively happen, right? And we know that is suspicious. But honestly, it's just kind of like, based on these first two chapters, I'm having a hard time accepting this idea that, oh, they're all just unrelated incidents. They've all been completely solved, right? I don't believe that, right? Like, in the slightest. Now, this isn't to say Oishi's like some great actor, right? That he's a good dude. But I still generally think he's at least closer to the side of good than bad. Maybe that's not true, but right now I'd be kind of shocked if Irie is also, or if he's more on the side of long-term good than bad. I don't know. For some reason, he just gives me that vibe of like, I could easily be in charge of, very dangerous things, and I'm covering things up, right? And he's in a position of respect and authority, and so he's in a good position to do that. I don't know. Maybe he really does just want the best for Satsuko and is like trying to keep things safe for Hinamizawa, but like, when you combine the Kantoku thing and then just, I don't know, just some of the things we've already seen, I'm just not getting a good vibe from Irie. Accept it. The incidents were all solved, and a detective supposedly with the police department didn't accept that?
あいつが近づく人間には必ず何かよからぬことが起こると言われています。ひなみ沢ではね、大石のことをお社様の。
Honestly, thank you, Mion. Just keep us out of this. Because there he was about to say it again, Oyashiro-sama's harbinger. Heard that before. I don't know. I'm still kind of like, right now, my initial thought on that is this is more of like a correlation, not causation kind of thing, right? That people who interact with Oishi are being killed because they interacted with Oishi, so I guess that is kind of causation, but not that he's responsible for it, right? Right now, in my eyes, he's not leading people to their deaths. He probably has picked up by now that people he talks to are, like, ending up dead, right? And so, I'm not going to say he's a completely innocent party here, but I wouldn't be shocked if the dark side of Hinamizawa that is presumably behind all these killings is killing people who interact with the police, right? Like, I don't think that's a very abnormal thing to do. For these, it's not that weird to think that, a group that is murdering people wouldn't want people interacting with the police. Anyways, the door flew open with a rattle and Mion came rushing in. Rena and Rika-chan came running in a few steps behind her, and then Tomita-kun, Okamura-kun, and a few more of our classmates.
Kei-chan, 大石にやられたの？怪我を？
落ち着いて、ミオンさん。怪我はありませんよ。念のため湿布をしているだけです。
ケイチ君、本当に大丈夫かな？みんなに聞いたら首を絞め上げられてたとか言ってて。
Strangled is a huge exaggeration, but don't get me wrong, Oishi was definitely playing dirty there. That was messed up what he just did, but strangled is a humongous exaggeration.
落ち着けよ、レナ。肩をすげえ痛く握られただけだ。ほら、あざだってないだろ。
たく、あんたら何やってんだよ。仲間だろ。なんでぼーっとしてたんだよ。なんでケイちゃんを助けなかったんだよ。
What the heck were they gonna do?
ごめんなさい、委員長。
I understand that Hinamizawa mentality, but I don't know. Scolding actual literal children for that seems kind of wild to me. Mion yelled at our classmates, baring her fangs. Tomita-kun and the others hung their heads in silence.
よせよ、ミオン。富田君たちはその場にいなかったんだ。責めるのはよせ。
ちくしょう。大石のやつ。
Mion kicked the floor with her heel a few times, her temper running hot. Our teacher, overhearing the commotion, arrived as well.
こらこらこら。保健室で騒がしくしてはいけません。委員長、みんなを連れて保健室から出なさい。
ほらみんな、もう行こう。ケイチ君は大丈夫だって。ほら、みーちゃんも。
Mia was letting her emotions get the best of her, so Rena stepped in instead and let everyone out of the nurse's office. This time it's Rena's turn to, manage the situation. They all have their own things that set them off. The detective from Okinomiya Station, Kurido Oishi. It looked like the first impression I'd gotten from him hadn't been mistaken. Satoko's absence had amplified the vague apprehensions I'd felt since yesterday, and Oishi's appearance basically sealed the deal.
さて、じゃあ私はもともと千恵先生に用事があってきたんです。
あ、用事があって学校に来たんですよね。俺なんかのために。どうもすみませんでした。
Don't be so humble, he said, smiling easily.
おかげで役得と言いますか、前原くんのきめ細やかなお肌も存分に堪能できましたよ。はふー。
Bro. With the usual, for Coach anyway, parting words, he instead continued.
では、失礼します。大した怪我ではありませんが、患部を揉んだりするようなことはくれぐれも避けてください。
Probably a wise plan.
もしも高熱が出たり、腫れたりするようなことがあったら、すぐに連絡してくださいね。
That's also a wise plan. Irie specifically, I have my doubts, but, if things start to swell or you get a high fever, it is generally advised to get medical attention, yeah.
そんなことはないと思いますが。
あ、そうだ、監督。さっき、みんなが来る直前、何か言ってましたよね。大石のことを、お社様のなんとかって。
As he was about to leave the nurse's office, Coach placed a hand on the door and stopped.
ああ、お社様の使いですよ。もちろん悪口ですがね。
お社様の使い？
前原さんはひなみ沢で毎年綿流しの夜に起こるひなみ沢村連続開始事件、通称お社様のたたりのことはご存知ですか？
I don't think we know about that yet in this route.
え、
Nope.
連続開始？
Alright,
え？
here we go again. Now that I thought about it, I did seem to remember overhearing Mion or someone in class talking about it like a ghost story. On the festival day in June, one person would always die, and another person would be spirited away, but they seem to call it demoning away here. What a fine story that was. I figured they made it up to scare me, but it was true?
一体どこの誰が言い出したのかもわからない話ですが、いつの頃からか大石のことをお社様の使いと呼ぶようになりました。
なぜですか？
あの男がその年のたたりの犠牲者を決めていると噂されているからです。
Whenever June came around, Oishi would start paying frequent visits to Hinamizawa.
亡くなったり消えたりする人たちの多くがあの男の必要な訪問を受けているからです。
Yeah, again, that just sounds like people who cooperate with the police are getting taken care of, to me. I'm gonna be honest. 4 years ago, it was known that the victim of the dismemberment, rumored to be the sacrifice, had been seeing Oishi numerous times leading up to the incident. The sacrifices 3 years ago were Satoko's parents. Right before their accidental deaths, Oishi had apparently visited their home. The one who disappeared 2 years ago was Rika-chan's mother. And again, people know that before she vanished, Oishi had been talking to her extremely frequently. The one who disappeared last year, Satoko's older brother, Satoshi. Satoshi, too, had apparently been approached by Oishi many times before he vanished. And then this year, this time, Oishi was trying to contact Satoko.
冗談じゃないです。
噂ですよ、前原さん。そういう噂があると。
I hadn't said that because of the rumors of Oishi being Oyashiro-sama's servant, or as contacting someone foreshadowing who would be the sacrifice that year. It was because the ominous hatred I felt towards Oishi was becoming more substantiated, more real.
さとこ、今日欠席したじゃないですか。
え？そうなんですか？
That looked like news to Coach. I thought he might have known why Satoko was absent today, but...
では失礼します。前原くんも早くみんなのところに行って安心させてあげるといいでしょう。
This is going to be a lot to break down.
そうですね。そうします。
Clatter. Coach left the nurse's office and headed towards the teacher's lounge. Interesting stuff. That's it? Okay, cool. This is a double episode. I've only been playing for an hour. Screw that. I need more. Okay, that works anyways. I think I need to average over a chapter a day anyways, most likely. Research notes. Honestly, I think before I even look at the tips, I'm gonna start to... No, I should look at these first. Let's look at the tips. Let's look at the research notes. The Houjou family. Every year, Oyashiro-sama's curse claims 2 victims. This means that with 4 years in a row, there have been 8 now. But it's worthwhile to note that half of them have been members of this family. Note, the curse on the second year, a certain falling accident, involved the death of Houjou, a dam proponent, and the disappearance of his wife. She was pronounced dead the following year after being considered to have vanished under perilous circumstances. The curse on the 4th year involved the death of the Houjou siblings' aunt, who was then their foster mother, and the disappearance of the elder brother. The Houjou family is a poor one, and it's hard to say Mr. Hojo's job went very well. Apparently, upon re-employment via family connections, there was a plan for them to return to the home of the mother side of the family. For Mr. Houjou, the eviction due to the Hinamizawa Dam project and the payment of a large amount of compensation money was essentially a windfall. Mr. Houjou actively embraced the Ministry of Construction's negotiations from an early stage and was selected as representative of the dam proponents. It was rumored he had been bought out by the Ministry of Construction for doing so, but the truth is unknown. However, the dam's proponents were in the vastly outnumbered minority. In addition, as the Sonozaki family strengthened its own foundation and promised support against the dam, all of the proponents save for Mr. Houjou switched over to the anti-dam side. At this point, Hinamizawa was completely united against the dam, and Mr. Houjou was held up to ridicule as a stooge of the dam project's proponents. He was, essentially, used as a scapegoat for the anti-dam coalition. In the end, the dam project collapsed with the Yashiro-sama's curse and the dismemberment incident. However, punishment towards the bitter enemies supporting the dam project continues to this day. There are not many left today who supported the dam project, nor who had a negative reputation at the time. If there were any candidates left for the curse, it's the husband of the housewife who was beaten to death last year, Teppei Houjou, and Mr. Houjou's daughter, Satoko Houjou. Strangely, these two are the only candidates left. Will this year's curse come down on the two of them? There's more than enough value in observing them both. Yeah, I mean, I think that's valid. Right, there are... If it's quite literally they're the last 2 Houjous remaining, right, then it really wouldn't shock me. It does bring into question, though, why it's been other people. Why it's been Tomitake and Takano, right, presumably. Let's look at Oishi's post memo. To Oishi-san. There was a call for you from Section 4's Chief Shigeharu. Apparently the slaughtered corpse in the Ujikawa River is related to the S group, as we thought. We're still verifying what happened behind the scenes, but apparently the deceased filled up dozens of self-created fictional bank accounts to their limits with money from the S group, reaching around 100 million yen. It appears there were 3 or 4 men with former S group connections involved in this. They've already disappeared along with millions of yen. The deceased was tortured on that point for information, and she was clearly slaughtered as an example to others. There are apparently some real wizards chasing down the people who disappeared. They're also spreading letters to related Yakuza groups not to harbor them. There's still no evidence that Teppei Houjou was one of those people. As far as Chief Shigeharu can tell, he hasn't been told anything. He was her pimp, but she didn't trust him at all, did she? Teppei Houjou has left the apartment in Okonomiya and has returned to his former residence in Hinamizawa. Oh no. I guess that might explain it. That might explain Satoko's absence. That's really bad. If he's as abusive as they made him out to be. Okay. So I guess let's talk about this chapter a bit. Whew. Okay, Oishi makes his appearance. Satoko isn't at school today. Irie tells us a lot of things, right? Very interesting day. So first of all, we can start with Satoko, why she was missing from school. And I'd say it was likely that it had to do with the reappearance of Teppei, right? The uncle, right? I'd be shocked if it wasn't that. And it could explain why Rika was so downtrodden as well, right? If she knows what that man did, right, to Satoko, right, she probably wouldn't be particularly happy to see him come back, if I had to guess. Oishi's appearance too. I mean, if Teppei's here, it really would explain why he was looking for Satoko, right? It's not that hard to figure that out. But I think obviously the bigger story is that Keiichi was really uncooperative. In the past, he wasn't, right? In the past, Keiichi was very cooperative. And I think it was because of that little pep talk he got from Rena, really. And I mean, of course, his feelings of anxiety really were like helped there a lot. But I think without Rena talking to him, he very well might have been more cooperative than he was. He's acting like you'd expect a lot of the Hinamizawans to act around Oishi now, very, like, resentful, really does not like Oishi, does not want him to disturb the peace that they have, right? Interesting. This is not necessarily a side of Keiichi I was thinking we'd see. Right, I don't know. I didn't know that, or I didn't really expect this to happen, honestly. So that's really interesting. And the big thing too is, like, he didn't take very well to this. I mean, he actively was causing harm on Keiichi, right? All while doing it, like, while leaving no evidence, right, of it, right? No bruises, nothing of the sort. So he's clearly quite good at this. We knew he played bad cops. This isn't really shocking that he can do stuff like that, but wow, he really does play bad cop, huh? Next up, we got the section with Irie, and he tells us a lot of things, right? And I think the most notable, by far, it's everything relating to Oishi again, right? Such as the fact that they're calling him Oyashiro-sama's servant, right? And saying that those that, like, he chooses who the sacrifices will be because the people he interacts with a lot end up killed, or sacrificed. Again, I said this during, I don't really completely buy it. I think this is a case of the people talking to the police are just being killed, right? And especially when they're all, like, for the most part, a lot of them are dam proponents, right? And were likely just branded enemies of the village, right? You might even be able to explain one of them away, right? In the case of the Houjous, right? The second set of Houjous, so Teppei's wife. You might be able to explain that away as something similar to what just happened to Teppei's current girlfriend. No way to know for sure right now, but it's possible. But either way, I'm not really buying that right now that Oishi is determining who is sacrificed. And I think this is in part because I don't fully trust Irie, right? And like I said earlier, part of it is because, that Kantoku link, right? That same word that was used in Chapter 1 to refer to the director, right? Is being used to refer to Irie. And so obviously, right, just off that, I'm a little suspicious, but it's honestly just more than that. Right now, I don't know that I fully trust any Hinamizawans, right? Especially anyone who tries to explain away everything as like, oh yeah, they're all solved. Completely unrelated incidents. Yep. And I'm like, I just don't buy it. And I know it's Oishi that's been putting that thought into our head, right? And he's the only one who doesn't really buy that. But, like, I don't even know that, is that completely true? I think there are probably other police who don't really buy it and are, like, threatened into silence, right? Like, Oishi's the only one brazen enough to actually look, right? And so right now, I still generally am more believing Oishi, right, than Irie. Is Oishi completely faultless in telling the truth on everything? Probably not, right? I'm sure, like, he is not the completely innocent party that Chapter 1 or 2 might make you want to believe, right? He, at the very least, we know he plays dirty, right? He's dirty, right? He's cheap, right? He's not necessarily interested just in the well-being of individuals, right? He just wants to solve this case, right? And the thing is, I do believe that there's a case here, right? I don't think these aren't connected, and so, like I said, anyone trying to push that in Irie's case as, oh yeah, no, they're not connected at all, right? Right? And he's the only one, right? keep an eye out for him, right? It just kind of feels like, don't ask any further, don't look into it, right? Like, don't get involved with Oishi, right? Because, you know, if he's linked to things, it would make sense, right? And so, yeah, I don't know. Like I said, don't really trust Irie, and so I can't fully trust everything he's saying, personally. We'll see. I don't know. Maybe they'll show Irie to be more reputable than I thought, and that Oishi is, maybe he is Oyashiro-sama's servant. I'm not going to write off the possibilities, right? But just right now, I don't buy it. But honestly, we can just go ahead and move on to the next chapter. We will go ahead and save, though. And let's just go ahead and move into chapter 6. Because I'm moving into another chapter right now, if this one isn't a short one, this might end up being a long episode. But I'm not going to... I don't know. I don't feel like dropping an episode that's an hour and 20 minutes. So, I'm not going to. We're just going to continue.
守りたいと思う心に
Wholeheartedly
嘘
wanted
は
to
なかっ
protect
た。
her. I wanted more than
大
anybody else
切
what
に
was
したい
best
と
for
思
her.
う心
These
は
emotions born from kindness
誰より
eventually
も
became
強い
murderous
はずだっ
intent.
た。
My pure white intentions stained in red and
優
black.
しさから
Oh,
生まれた
Lord.
感情はやがて殺意へと変わり、真っ白だった思いは赤と黒で染まってゆく。それが守りた
And
か
even
っ
as
た
I
日
understood that I
常
meant
の
the
崩壊
destruction
を
of the day-to-day life
意
I
味
so
している
wanted to
と分かっ
protect.
ていながら、
Right, so
たたり殺し、
Satoko Higurashi.
何が間違っていたの
Where
か。
did I go wrong? Looking for the
その
answer. The
答えを
tragedy
探し
spreads
て、
ever wider.
悲劇はさらに広がってゆく。
Okay, so yeah, I kind of forgot about these things.
北条さんは今日もお休みですか？
We'll see. But first thought is that is referring to Keiichi. It could possibly be Irie, but probably Keiichi, and it probably means exactly what I thought it means, that he's going to get kind of inducted into that Hinamizawa almost cult, right? Is one of the better ways to describe some of the ways they act, right? It's kind of what I suspected already, and that kind of feels like it confirms it. Which is interesting. We'll have to see. And I mean, obviously they mentioned murderous intent. That is, that's something. I guess maybe, and I was actually kind of like toying with this idea earlier that what if Keiichi ends up being one of the killers, right? And so now I'm like, wow, that actually might be happening. If it does happen, I really would have preferred that they didn't kind of hint at it like that. I'm still not kind of huge on those interludes. I wonder if, like, is there a way to just skip those? I don't know. They're not, like, terrible, but they feel, like, almost spoilery, right? And I'm like, I don't know if I need those. Right, maybe I could just skip them in the future. I don't know. Alright, let's just get to the chapter, though.
古田さんは何か知っていますか？
The teacher's voice wasn't critical, but Rika-chan hung her head, unable to answer, and I felt really bad for her. The teacher called Rika-chan up and they had an exchange in hushed tones at the dai. At first, Rika-chan said that Satoko's fever had grown worse, but everyone in class knew it was a lie. Because every day, Rika-chan brought Satoko's bento with her.
さとこちゃん、どうしちゃったんだろうね。
俺が知るかよ。
I'm the one who wants to know most of all. It was already the third day since Satoko's first absence. Ever since then, I haven't felt good. Until just last Sunday, everything had been so much fun. I had reached out to Satoko like a real older brother, and we spent the time quietly, but warm and comfortable. So why had it suddenly been flipped over? The more I thought about it, the more I thought that the world had taken a turn for the worse ever since Oishi arrived. Thinking on it now, maybe the strange apprehensions plaguing me the night before Oishi arrived had been a sign. Oh yeah, he's like fully about to be inducted. Oh goodness. Kurido Oishi, Oyashiro-sama's servant.
そんなことあるもんか。あいつが現れたから、サトコが今年のたたりに会う役だなんて決められてたまるかよ。
Just what sort of slip-up had I committed to cause those fun times to end so suddenly? Yes, it was the day before Oishi appeared. Shion, Mion, and Rena had spoken of the curse surrounding Satoshi and his disappearance, and it was so sinister it gave me a bad premonition. Such a small thing was the slip-up that invited Oyashiro-sama's servant? It was absurd. I kept on groaning to myself that I would never accept it, ever. I obviously wasn't the only one suppressing my feelings. Mion and Rena were too. Everyone in the class was doing it. Rika-chan knew something about Satoko's situation, but she wouldn't tell us. Rika-chan still held a calm attitude, like a cat basking in the sun. She was being unbelievably stubborn about this whole thing. She didn't want to tell us, and that wouldn't change no matter how many times we asked her. Everyone understood that, so nobody questioned her.
リカちゃんが言わないならさ、言うまで待つしかないよね。逆に言わないってことは、言う必要もない程度のことかもしれないし。
No, that's really not true at all. There was no persuasive power and reassurance given with an anxious face like that. Mion was being taciturn, and just looked up at the sky with a somehow annoyed expression. I couldn't tell if she was unhappy that Rika-chan wouldn't talk about it with her own friends, or if she was concerned over Satoko's well-being. It can be a bit of both, really. What about me? My anxiety was suffocating me, day after day. If someone else were looking at me, and maybe I'd look annoyed, like Mion did. Tap, tap. Someone tapped my shoulder. It was Tomita-kun and Okamura-kun.
前原さん、ちょっといいですか？
またボールが引っかかったか？今度はお前たちで何とかしてみろよ。いつまでも先輩に頼るのは良くないぜ。
I didn't feel like going along with them, so I was a little unsympathetic with my response.
ちょっと気になる噂を聞いたんすよ。
噂？
はい。ひょっとすると関係があるかもと思って。
Let's hear it. A rumor. About Satoko. They hadn't said that, but it didn't seem unrelated. They didn't want to talk in the classroom, so they pulled me behind the school building, lending further credence to that thought. The back of the school was damp and humid like always. Students didn't really come here because they wanted to. It might, however, have been the ideal location for trading rumors away from prying eyes.
富田君、岡村君、その噂話って、もちろん聡子の欠席と関係のある話なんだろうな。
関係があるかはわからないですけど、あるいは。
聡子は一体どうしたってんだ？風邪なのか？それともひょっとしてもっと重い病気か怪我か何かで。
Is she sick? Or could she be really sick? I get what he means, but it's kind of funny. Ask the same thing twice.
いえ、それがむしろ逆で、うちのばあちゃんの話だと、昨日の昼にうちの店に豆腐を買いに来たらしいんです。
Oh, Tomita's family runs a tofu shop, added Okamura-kun.
豆腐屋さんに買い物？
My voice sounds so stupefied even I can tell. It was understandable. I was worried about what grave illness or injury she had, when the person herself had been out and about, shopping for tofu.
で、聡子はどうだったんだよ？元気そうだったのか？それとも病み上がりでマスクでもしてたとか、松葉杖で包帯だらけだったとか。
いえ、別に病気とか怪我とかそういうわけじゃなかったらしいんですが。
I should have felt relieved that it wasn't an illness or an injury, but my anxiety wasn't going away, because Tomita-kun and Okamura-kun's expressions weren't looking any better.
絹ごし豆腐を一丁買っていったそうなんですが、ばあちゃんが言うにはおかしいと。
おかしい？なぜ？絹ごし豆腐を買って何が悪い？
Does she not like soft tofu? Irritated by how roundabout they were being, I had to desperately fight that irritation from creeping into my voice.
北条とフルデってほら二人暮らしでそんなにお金持ちってわけじゃないですよね。だから二人はいつも安い木綿豆腐しか買わないんです。
I see.
一番高い絹ごし豆腐なんか買ったことないんです。
木綿だって絹ごしだってどっちも豆腐だろ？たまにはうまい豆腐が食いたくなっただけかもしれないじゃないか。
Bro, you saw how, funds conscious she was while shopping earlier this chapter.
それはそうですけど。
I knew how transparent I sounded right then. This wasn't anything trivial. It was some kind of important clue. Not the cheap firm tofu, but the expensive soft kind. Shopping not in the evening after school, but in the middle of the day. I couldn't figure out what those things meant. As I thought hard about it, Okamura-kun took his turn to speak.
次は僕っすね。これも噂なんですけど、帰ってきたらしいんですよ。
帰ってきた？何が？誰が？
北条のおじさんが。
Satoko's uncle. Right. I think Coach told me about him. Their aunt and uncle had taken them in after Satoko and Satoshi lost their parents in the accident.
去年のお社様のたたりで怖くなって町に逃げたっていう。こいつヤクザみたいな怖くて乱暴なやつで。
Everything Coach told me came back in bits and pieces. Right. The mean aunt and uncle who had tormented them all the time. I think he said that after their aunt was beaten to death by the deviant, he ran away to his lover's house in Okinomiya in fear of the curse.
そいつが帰ってくると、どうして聡子が学校を休んで、真っ昼間に絹ごし豆腐を買う羽目になるんだ？
Probably just, I don't know. Like, best guess is, he's being abusive, not letting her go to school. My underclassmen clammed up and looked downwards. There must have been some big hint buried in there. Even if I didn't understand, if I told Mio and Rena about it, maybe they'd know something.
ごめんな、二人とも。せっかく好意で話を聞かせてくれたのに、なんだか問い詰めるような言い方になっちゃって。
あ、いえ、いいんすよ。北条が重病で寝たきりになってないことが分かっただけでも、ほら、儲けもんじゃないですか。
That might be true, but it still won't. It won't make the clouds over my mind fade away. It arguably makes it worse.
前原さん、ほらあれ!
Said Oishi. Okamura-kun cried wildly, pointing over my shoulders behind me. Startled, I turned around, and way on the other side of the schoolyard, near the school gate, I saw a figure trudging forth. Oh no. Yeah, she's clearly back to being abused. Epic. Oh, goodness.
北条だ!
So much for her cheerful face. I burst into a run faster than I could speak, so that, as quickly as possible, I could see with my own eyes that she was okay.
Satoko!
Satoko seemed taken aback by me shouting and running over to her.
なんですの圭一さん。突然大声を出して走ってくるから何事かと驚きましたわ。
バカ！俺のことなんかどうでもいいだろう。それよりどうしたってんだよ、聡子。俺心配で。
心配性ですわね。たかだか3日ですわよ。もう圭一さんは心配性なんですから。
From listening to her, she seemed like the normal Satoko, but I could tell she was clearly acting strangely. Her smile was somehow forlorn, and her complexion was bad for some reason.
北条! 大丈夫だったのかよ。風邪とかじゃないのか?
Tomita-kun and Okamura-kun both expressed their concerns.
一体どうしたってんだよ。3日も俺がどれだけ心配してたか。
ごめんあそばせですわ。ちょっとお家のお掃除をしたりしてたんですのよ。だいぶ長いこと使ってませんでしたから、もう家中ほこりだらけでして。
I'm sure this came with absolutely zero abuse.
はあ？聡子、お前何を言ってんだ？なんで家の掃除なんかで学校を休まなきゃなんないんだ？
Satoko didn't answer me. Instead, she passed by me and headed for the entrance.
もう今はお弁当の時間ではありませんの？私はお腹が空いてますのよ。
It was certainly lunch break. I couldn't force her to stop after she told me she wanted lunch since she was so hungry.
まあいいや。リカちゃんは3日間毎日お前の弁当を持ってきてくれてるんだぜ。今日はちゃんと食べてやれそうだな。とにかく早く教室へ行こう。みんなを安心させてやろうぜ。
そうですわね。皆さんにご心配をおかけしてしまったかもしれませんわね。あはははは。人気者は辛いでございますわ。
Right. I put a hand on Satoko's shoulder and we ran to the classroom together. Up close, I was able to verify that Satoko looked somehow weak. All this anxiety was supposed to go away when I saw her again. I mean, I wouldn't be shocked if she's not eating, right? We've already heard that he's holding meals from her. That's what I had thought. But now, I actually started to have quite different fears. What the heck happened, Satoko? Everyone in the class, of course, reacted in the same exact way I had. We worried about you. I'm glad to see you well. What were you doing for 3 days? Our classmates showered her in questions.
本当にご迷惑をおかけしましたわね。
As she cackled, she chowed down on the bento Rika-chan had made for her. Those in the teacher's lounge must have been informed of Satoko's arrival, because our teacher sprinted into the classroom, her breathing ragged.
北条さん。
あら先生、3日間もご心配をおかけしましたわね。ご覧の通り、元気でピンピンしてますわ。
No, you're really not, and I wouldn't be shocked if a lot of people can tell, but...
もう、
本当に心配してたんですからね。お弁当が食べ終わったら職員室に来るんですよ。いろいろとお話があります。
3日もサボったからきっと大目玉に違いありませんわね。
Trying to act like nothing's wrong. Satoko laughed sheepishly while she scratched her head, and the rest of the class burst out into laughter. It all just feels so forced to me. The teacher was acting angry, but she breathed a sigh of relief at seeing Satoko healthy and smiling as she ate her lunch with the class surrounding her.
でも安心したよな、レナ。
No, it's really not.
あ、ごめん。無事でよかったよね。
Like, she's physically here, but, like, there's a lot more to it than that. I looked at Rena and knew. She had a sense that something about Satoko was off, too. I looked to see Mion detached from the clamor as well, with a somewhat grim expression. But Rika-chan, on the other hand, was smiling from ear to ear. She spread out the bento boxes one by one as Satoko finished them. Finally, Satoko was satisfied, and after enjoying a thorough conversation with her classmates, remembered that she'd been called to the teacher's lounge. I wouldn't be shocked if that's like legit the only thing she's eaten, right? And that Rika's been holding meals for that exactly.
めんどくさいんですけど、行かないともっと怒られてしまいそうですからね。僕も一緒に行きますですよ。
Satoko rises from her seat and Rika-chan runs over to her.
ごめん遊ばせケイチさん。ちょっと怒られてまいりますわ。
おう、なんだったら俺も一緒に付き合うぜ。例のカレーの悪口の時、一緒に職員室で怒られた仲じゃねえか。
No. I don't
それ
think
には
they're-
及ばないのです。ケイチはここでお留守番なのですよ。
Rika-chan's words were gentle, but the firm rejection was clear in her eyes. The two of them exited into the hallway, walking shoulder to shoulder. After seeing them off, the class breathed a collective sigh of relief, broke apart, and went back to their usual lunch break banter. We, however, couldn't go back to how we usually were. Yeah, I mean, I think it was pretty obvious, right, that they all knew something was up. Not I, not Mion, and of course not Rena. They stared at the classroom exit Satoko and Rika-chan had left through, their expressions a little distant and grim.
俺たちは仲間だ。そうだろう、みんな。
I blurted out something strange, so Mion and Rena turned around with dubious expressions.
俺は仲間に隠し事はしない。だから、さっき聞いたばかりのことを言う。
I told them the stories I heard from Tomita-kun and Okamura-kun earlier about the tofu shop and how Satoko's uncle had apparently come back. All at once, without letting them speak.
これが俺の知るすべてだ。だからミオンもレナもしていることがあるなら話してくれ。俺は俺の知るすべてを話したぞ。
I ended my sentence firmly and looked into Mion's and Rena's eyes in turn. Rena stared right back at me. Her eyes didn't falter. Without even opening her mouth, I could tell she wasn't hiding anything. And our gazes turned to Mion.
別に私は隠して黙ってるわけじゃないよ。
Oh, yeah, she knew. Mion couldn't seem to endure our silent stares and began to talk timidly as if she was guilty of something.
でもケイちゃんが話したなら私も話さないわけにはいかないよね。
みーちゃん、何か知ってるの？
いや、聡子のおじが帰ってきたっての帰ってきた初日から知ってたよ。
And she's a Sonozaki. I imagine knowledge gets to them pretty quick.
この間の日曜日にふらっとひなみ沢に帰ってきたって。
どうしてそれを黙ってた？
ごめん。
Are they gonna alienate Mion in this route? That would be wild. My angry shout caused Mion to flinch away, look down, and hang her head uncomfortably.
ケイチくん、怒るようなことじゃないよ。みーちゃん怖がってる。
あ、ごめん。つい大声を。
I lowered my head in apology. Mion accepted it, collected herself, and continued. According to her, her uncle's relationship with his lover, whom he had been with in Okinomiya, had collapsed. Without anywhere to go, he went back home to Hinamizawa. Yeah, it collapsed because she got gutted like a fish. By the Sonozakis, by the way. And... Excuse me. And on that Sunday, the day of the barbecue, her uncle ran into Satoko and brought her back to the house.
自宅になんで連れ戻すんだよ。
ろくでなしの寄生虫だからね。 自分一人じゃ炊事はおろか掃除一つできないし。
そんな炊事屋を掃除のためにさとこちゃんを連れ戻したっていうの？
I mean, sounds about right given how he treated her before. I remember that she said she'd been cleaning the house when I met her back at the school gate. A moment later, the pieces fell into place, into the jigsaw puzzle of unease. And as for what the puzzle depicted, when I saw it from afar, I could see the answer clearly.
さとこが家に閉じ込められていじめられながら家事をやらされてるっていう噂なんだよ。
Yeah. If you knew that, why didn't you speak up? I nearly yelled that at Mion, but hastily stopped myself.
みーちゃん、それ本当なの？
私がこの目で確かめたわけじゃないから本当かどうかは知らないけど。
Mion looked down again and staring at the floor grew quiet.
去年みたいに意地悪なおじさん夫婦のところで暮らしてた時みたいに？
でもさ、そのおじさんって家事はからっきしなんだろ？さとこが重宝なわけだから何もいじめてるってわけじゃないかもしれないだろ？
圭一くん、何を根拠に言ってるのか知らないけど。
Wouldn't that be nice if he, like, treated her with respect for helping him or something? Instead, he bullies her into helping him.
いい加減なことは言わない方がいいよ。
Rena clearly and directly got mad at me. You don't know much about this, so don't talk as though you do. Yes, that's clearly what she meant.
じゃあレナは知ってるのかよ？
私だって知らないよ。今ここで聞くまでさとこちゃんがおじさんの家に連れ戻されたなんて知らなかったもの。でもね、1年前とはまるで状況が違うの。
No Satoshi, no wife.
状況が違うってどういうことだよ？
サトシくんがいない。
サトシはすごく妹思いのいい兄だったんだよ。
He's probably the only one that tried to protect her.
いつもサトコをかばってた。意地悪なおじおばのとばっちりが少しでもサトコにかぶらないように盾になってくれてた。
家には意地悪なおじさんとさとこちゃんが2人きりなんだよ。それがどれだけ行き詰まるものか圭一くんにだって想像がつくんじゃないかな。木南沢に帰ってきた理由だって身を寄せてた愛人が蒸発したからでしょ。そんな不愉快な理由で帰ってきた人がどうしてさとこちゃんに優しくできるっていうの？
Well, I'm not gonna give the uncle any props here, but that's still not the reason that he came back. You know, he definitely wasn't because he broke up with her. You know, it's because she got gutted like a fish. And it very well may have been his fault, so that would make it, you know, worse. But, like, you know, I don't know. I just felt the need to point that out. Really doesn't absolve him of literally anything. She was right. It wasn't easy for me to imagine Satoko not being tormented.
ごめん。
あ、こっちこそごめん。問い詰めるような口調になっちゃったね。
An awkward atmosphere floated among us. The three of us remained silent and just stared at the floor. Finally, we heard the principal's bell ringing. The teacher came back with Satoko and Rika-chan at her side.
さあさあ、午後の授業を始めますよ。委員長、号令。起立。
ごめんなさいね。失礼。
She looks really serious. I couldn't read anything from Satoko's vaguely sheepish expression, but given the clouded look Rika-chan was wearing behind her, it was tough to laugh off the disquieting story I'd heard from Mion. Man, this is all kinds of messed up. How does it keep getting worse for Satoko? Literally, constantly. Poor Satoko.
久々に全メンバーが揃ったからね。久しぶりにパーッと大部活で盛り上がろうじゃないの。
I doubt Satoko's allowed to stay. Yeah, perfect. Indeed, in times like these, the best thing to do is obviously get rowdy and scheme against one another in a club activity.
望 望むところだよ。ねえ、さとこちゃん、やろうやろう。
サトコが好きだったゲームあるでしょ。ほら、なんだったっけ。なんでも構わないよ。言ってみ。言ってみ。
Mion laughed happily, took a bunch of games out of the club locker and lined them up on the desks. I think that was the first time Mion's ever let someone else decide on a game for her. I could tell she was being especially considerate to Satoko, thinking that whatever her circumstances, if we could just enjoy our time together as a group, that might be some comfort, some diversion. Satoko seemed to understand her feelings too, and smiled vaguely, though pleased, but her head slowly moved from side to side.
ありがたいですけど、お気持ちだけで結構ですわ。いろいろしなければならないことがありますので。
Yeah, her uncle wouldn't let her stay home, or stay at school. Bro, he's gracious enough, probably, to let her go in the first place. Even Rika-chan hung her head in remorse.
おいおいおいおいおい、本気なわけ？部活メンバーが久しぶりに揃ったってのに、お流れになっちゃうわけ？敵前逃亡は罰ゲームってのは、海賊第何条だったっけ？
やめなよ、みーちゃん。
It's really not Satoko's
無
choice.
理に付き合わせちゃダメだよ。
別におじさんは無理強いしてるわけじゃないよ。ただ、大盛り上がりした方が絶対に楽しいと思って。
本当にお気持ちだけで嬉しいんですのよ。
This is terrible.
ご安心なさいませ。次に戦うときは皆さんまとめてでっかい罠にはめてご覧に入れますわ。
Satoko, while insulting us, still said she couldn't participate in the club today and apologized. She quickly put her things into her bag and pattered out into the hallway, disappearing. It all happened in the blink of an eye.
さとこ。
Rika-chan stared lonesomely as her friend hurried home, unable to be part of club activities. Silence filled the classroom. Both the cheerful voices of our classmates in the schoolyard and the voices of the cicadas sounded like they were coming from some faraway world.
つまんないの？
The silence was broken by Mion's bitterness as she began putting the games on the desk and back into the locker. Everyone just stared absently at Satoko's seat, now empty.
リカちゃん、そろそろ話してくれてもいいんじゃないかな。
Like, we've heard the rumors. Like, you have to know that by now. Brenna made it as gentle a smile as she possibly could and spoke softly to Rika-chan. Even without hearing it from her, we pretty much knew the situation at this point. Satoko's uncle had broken up with his lover and come back to Hinamizawa, and he had taken Satoko back home and forced her to do all the household work, and that all had to be pretty rough on her. Thinking this was common knowledge to everyone, I skipped to the important part.
だいぶひどいのか？
You probably... I don't know, it's a bit bold to just come out and ask that, but it's probably for the best, honestly. Maybe Mion and Rena wanted to ask the same question. Nobody spoke. We all just stared, waiting for Rika-chan's reply. Rika-chan still didn't answer us. We were hoping for her to say no, but her silence was a bad enough sign.
去年だっけ？おじ夫婦の元にいた時もこんな状況だったんだろ
うん。あの時は、夫婦喧嘩のとばっちりみたいなのがほとんどだったからさ。こうして部活で時間を潰して、家にいる時間を極力減らすのも一つの手だったんだけど。
Oh my goodness, that's part of why the club was made. Oh my god. That makes it hit even harder. Jeez.
今は家事を強制されてるから学校に残ることもできないんだね。
Shit. Satoko's not a slave. Who do you think you are? Ignoring your own inability to live properly and basically putting Satoko under house arrest.
常識的に考えてこんなのおかしいんじゃねえのか？
Yes.
いろいろと状況証拠は必要だろうけど、こういうのって虐待だろ？
Yes. The definition of it.
警察とかに通報できないのかよ？
No, because no one wants the police involved in literally anything here.
そうだよね。体罰の証拠とかがあれば警察に通報できると思うよ。あるいはそういうのって地域の民生委員さんとかに相談できないの？
Rena and I kept saying police, police, as though it were nothing, but Mion's response sounded like she thought we were a little naive.
みんな簡単に言ってくれるけどさ、それを立証するリスクを考えたことある？
Yeah?
リスクってなんだよ？
I mean, it is definitely very difficult to get proof of these kinds of things too, but it's not exactly like Hinamizawas want much police involvement. Maybe I'm being a little harsh. That is very true, but I think it really is just quite difficult to prove abuse a lot of the time.
一昨年の冬かな。通報したんだよ。児童相談所に。虐待があるからすぐに何とかしてくれって。
そうだったんだ。それで？
電話してすぐにお役所の人が来てくれたよ。で、聡子とかサトシとかに事情聴取してた。ついでにおじ夫婦のところにもね。
聡子とサトシに聞くまではいいが、おじ夫婦にまで聞くのはまずいんじゃないのか？
両者の意見を聞いて総合的に判断するんだとさ。ご立派ご立派。
で、結果はどうだったの？
様子見。
様子見ってなんだよそれ。
おじさんとっても勉強になっちゃったんだけどさ、法律ではね、暴行か育児放棄が認められなきゃ虐待とは言わないんだってさ。聡子もサトシもよく小づかれてたらしいけど、別に傷跡が残るようなレベルじゃなかったし。
Oh, is she be like?
3食の飯も一応食えてたし、心理的外傷を与える言動だって別にカセットテープで証拠があったわけじゃないし、村の人たちだって実際に乱暴してる現場は見たことないからね。いくら意地悪だからって人前で乱暴はしないでしょ、誰だって。
で、その後どうなったの？
Nothing.
しばらくは毎週決まった日に民生委員さんが訪問してたみたい。おじ夫婦も自分たちが見張られてることを気にして目立ついじめはしなくなったらしいけど、それで済むわけないでしょ普通。
より陰湿ないじめ方に加速していったってことだね。
Yeah, probably in other ways, and I'd bet the exact instant they weren't being watched anymore. It's GG's. He sighed and nodded.
おばのやつが特にねちっこくってさ、女特有の陰湿さっていうのかな。相当いやらしいことをしてたらしいよ。聡子、最後の方は呼吸するだけのボロ人形みたいだった。
So what? From that conclusion, does that mean they never should have consulted child welfare in the first place?
わかった？
Didn't particularly help, I'll give you that.
誰の目にも明らかな虐待の証拠がなかったらお手上げなんだよ。むしろ状況を悪化させかねない。あれは失敗だった。
After hearing that even public organizations, the one thing they thought was dependable, couldn't do anything, everyone hung their heads.
つまり、誰の目にも明らかな虐待の証拠が見つかるまで通報すべきでないってことなんだね。
うん。まあ、そういうこと。
I considered Satoko's current situation. She was brought back to her house. It was a little difficult to call that abuse. She was being tormented and forced to do the chores. How she was being tormented would be the key, but without concrete evidence it would be difficult to prove. She had some kind of external injury that would work, but as far as we could tell from today, she had nothing like that. A master of abuse. Awesome. And being forced to do the chores, that was a bit weak too. There had to be better evidence that she was without a doubt being abused. I know. Her uncle had ignored Satoko's existence for a whole year and went to live with his lover in town. Didn't that fall under one of the definitions of abuse that Mion had mentioned? Child neglect?
それは立派な育児放棄だね。どうなのみーちゃん。
おじが今もいなければ育児放棄は認定されそうだけど。
If someone had said something about it prior to now, but...
今この瞬間は同居してるわけでしょ。今までは別居だったけど、心を入れ替えて同居することにしたなんて言われたら、また様子見なんてことになりかねないよ。
Yeah, this would have needed to have been reported in the past year. Once we reported it, we would need to be absolutely sure they'd interpret it as abuse. Maybe we needed far more concrete evidence, lest we repeat last year's mistake.
なんだか悲しい。ということはつまり、聡子ちゃんが乱暴されて大きな傷が残るまで黙って見てろってことなんだよね。
The only plan I could think of was, in the end, just watching and waiting. It left me in shock when I realized that it would be the same policy as that of the officials who had made the situation worse. As Mion said, reporting it to a public agency would be a gamble. If we're going to pick a fight, it would have to be one we couldn't afford to lose. We were gambling without without enough money, without enough evidence, our defeat would be assured. If we took the time to amass enough money that we could be sure of victory, then that would mean pretending we didn't see Satoko's plight for a considerable amount of time. That's
こん
so
なところで
messed up.
話を振ってごめんな。リカちゃんはどうして一人暮らしができるんだ？
That's a good question. There was something like that was something I was thinking about earlier. This has to be hard on Rika too, right? I mean, not only is her best friend in life being abused, but now she lives by herself, right? And is not exactly an adult who should be living by herself. Rika-chan had lost her parents, if I recalled correctly. From what I'd heard, she had no relatives either. She was forced to live on her own as a result, but her life was unfettered, free of restriction. If she could somehow grant that freedom to Satoko too.
ほら、リカちゃんって両親いないのに生活してるだろ。保護者のいない子供って孤児院みたいなところに入れられちゃうんじゃないっけ？
圭一くん、それひどい。
悪口で言ってるんじゃねえよ。そこに聡子を救うヒントがあるかもしれないと思って聞いてみただけなんだ。リカちゃん、気分を害したならごめんな。
Rika-chan shook her head, not particularly disturbed.
それはですね、
Probably just never reported
僕
it.
実は村長さんちの子供になっているからなのです。
I see. Old man Kimiyoshi, I guess what? Legally the father.
補足がいるね。村長の君吉のおじいちゃんがリカちゃんの保護者なんだよ。
Guardian is a better word, yeah.
ちゃんと県知事の許可を得た正式な。
養子みたいなものか？
養子とは違う。別に籍を入れなくても保護者にはなれるんだよ。
分かってきた。つまりリカちゃんは普通に暮らしてるけど、法律の上では村長さんの家に住んでることになってるんだね。
And I guess they've just never disproven that fact.
まあそんなとこ。そのおかげでリカちゃんは孤児院送りを免れてるってわけ。孤児院っていうか児童養護院のことだけど。
難しいことはよくわかりませんが、つまりはそういうことなのです。
ミオン、今興味深いことを言ったな。席が違っても保護者になれるみたいなことを言ったよな。じゃあ形だけでも村長さんとかが聡子の保護者になってくれればいいんじゃないのか？
I mean, the problem is she has a guardian. Oh no, I think I might see where this is going. Oh lord, someone gonna kill him? So that she can have another guardian or something? Then she'd be in the same position as Rika-chan, and she could go back to her old life.
ところがそうはいかないの。だっておじだって保護者のつもりなんだもん。
ちょっと待て、わけがわからなくなったぞ。そもそも保護者ってなんだ？
In legal terms, a guardian and a parent weren't necessarily synonyms, so whoever was actually looking after her at home would be considered her guardian.
ならおじは保護者じゃないな。
But legally he is.
ずっと聡子をほったらかしにしてた。
でも保護者だと主張されたらそれまでだよ。聡子が連れ戻されてから数日、その間の食事代はおじの財布から出てるよね。一応面倒を見てると主張できなくもない。それに1年間聡子をほったらかしたとはいえ、最初の1年間は生活の面倒を見た実績がある。でも村長にはその実績はない。
意地悪なおじさんと村長さんが同時に保護者を主張したら、おじさんの方が強いってこと？
Yeah, I mean, blood ties, past guardianship, right? If we wanted, like, we would have needed to get the ball moving on this earlier than we did.
その可能性が高いってこと。それに保護者ってのは実際に面倒を見てる人を指すんだよ。実際に寝床や食事を握ってるおじと名義だけ貸そうとしてる村長じゃどうにもならない。
じゃあ村長が実際に生活の面倒を見ればいいじゃないか。そうすれば名実ともに村長が保護者になれるんだろう。
That's a lot of, like, to ask of any one person, but we just need to shelter Satoko. That might lead to her uncle being desperate to take her back, but will stubbornly refuse him.
そんな簡単にはいかないよ。
Yeah, it really won't be.
聡子は育ち盛りの女の子なんだよ。人間一人の面倒を見てくださいなんて、猫の子預けるのとはわけが違う。
Yeah.
じゃあ監督はどうだよ。監督ってよくは知らないけど裕福なんだろ。自分で言ってたくらいなんだし、本当の親でなくても保護者になれるなら監督でも可能なんだ。
A good candidate. like the best one so far, but
監督ならサトコの面倒を立派に見てくれる気がする。
だからサトコをペットみたいに考えないでって。ケイちゃんはさっきからサトコを誰かに押し付ける話ばっかり。人間一人の生活の面倒を見る責任ってものをもっと慎重に考えて。
that is very true. Although I will say, you know, Irie has quite literally said he has considered it.
監督に聞いたの？サトコを引き取って面倒を見るってちゃんと確約を得たわけ？
そんなの得てないよ。でも監督なら絶対に OK するだろ
う。まあいいよ。
It's your best bet.
100歩譲って監督が OK したとするよ。でもダメなんだよ。保護者は独身じゃダメなんだよ。
Ugh, that's right. Coach, didn't he say it himself? He was alone, so he couldn't do it. Shit, what the hell? Why is being single such a disadvantage in this society? Then, all you could do is marry into a wealthy family, couldn't you?
ひなみ沢にそんなお金持ちはいるのかな。難しそう。
ね、簡単じゃないんだよ。
Apparently Keiichi's mom, but
人間一人引き取るってのは誰かに押し付けようなんて短絡的な考えがそもそもダメなの。
yeah, that's very true.
考えが浅いんだよ、ケイちゃんは。
It kind of is.
なんなんだよ、畜生畜生。俺は必死にサトコを救おうと考えてるのに、ダメだダメだってそればっかり。お前ら本当はサトコのことなんかどうでもいいんだろ。
Of course they do.
仲間のこと本気で心配してないんだろ。どうなんだよ。
そんなつもりないよ。
Sometimes you gotta be a little pragmatic and, right, like, it's not that they don't want to help, it's that, what do you do, right? And I think Keiichi's gonna come to the same realization eventually, and that's why I'm worried he's going to do things he should not, right? Like, killing people.
でもそう簡単にはいかないっていうか。
そんな難しい話じゃねえだろ。裕福な奴がサトコをしばらく面倒見てくれればいい。それだけのことだぞ。そうだ、ミオンチはどうだよ。
You really are just pawning Satoko off on people now.
お前御三家とかいう立派な家柄なんだって自慢してたよな。話じゃものすごいでかい家に住んでるそうじゃないか。
うち？無理。そんなのバチャが許してくれるはずない。
じゃあ沖宮に住んでる親はどうだよ。聞いた話じゃこっちもかなりの豪邸に住んでるらしいじゃないか。
Yeah, and you're literally just pawning Satoko off on people.
町には親類の経営する店がたくさんあるそうだし、立派な資産家じゃないかよ、おい。
Keiichi has kind of lost rationality, I'm not gonna lie.
ダメ。沖宮の家なんてもっとダメ。うちのお父さんそんなの絶対に許さない。
Yeah, honestly, the Shinomiya, Shinomiya? What? Bro, what am I saying? The Sonozaki family. I don't know, like, the Miya was in my head. It was a family that started with S, and so I somehow grabbed the rich family from Kaguya. Wild how the brain works sometimes. Sonozaki family is arguably like the one of the few places that could possibly end up being worse, right? So
おい普段は散々大物ぶりを自慢しといて、ここ一番で及び腰かよ。
God dang, wow, he really is gonna isolate Mion, isn't he?
なんなんだよお前、サトコを見殺しにする気かよ。
そんなつもりはないけど。そりゃ私だってサトコを助けてやりたいよ。でもそれとこれじゃ話が
違うってのかよ、冷てえやつ。
Dude, you are...
仲間の危機だろ。ここで救わなかったら何なんだよ。部長だろ、部活の。救えよ仲間の危機をよ。今ここで救わなかったら仲間じゃねえ、人じゃねえ。
Dude.
お前の人間性が問われてるんだよ。聞いてるのかよ、ミオン。
Oh my god. Yeah, Keiichi's cooked, bro. Fully indoctrinated. My emotions all exploded out of me, and I didn't even give her a chance to say anything in response. I just wanted to make Mion agree with me, even if I had to force her. If she did, Satoko's problems would be solved. If pushing her would solve the issue, then I'd push her as much as I needed to.
何さっきから黙り込んでんだよ。聞いてるのかこの野郎。 どうなんだよ。なんとか言ってるよ、園崎美代。
Bro,
みー
someone might need to step in. Mion, looking down with a grim face, began sobbing. Her hands were clenched into trembling fists, and she rubbed her eyes to wipe away the tears. Was what I said actually that mean? Yes! What? You said she's not even... Like, she has no humanity, right? Called her spineless, like, called her an asshole, like, yes, you were being that mean, Keiichi. This isn't the time to cry. We're in the gambling room now. We have to do something to save Satoko. And as I thought that, Rena spoke, her voice cold and incredibly calm.
ケイチ君、みーちゃん家がダメなら他の裕福な家を探したら。私、ひなみ沢に立派な豪邸建てて住んでる人知ってるよ。
Yeah, so do I.
誰だよ。
白々しいよ。あれだけ立派な家に住んでて自分の家だけは蚊帳の外。
俺んちかよ。俺の家は。
仲間なんでしょ。救ってよ、ケイチ君が。みーちゃんはダメだってさ。じゃあ仲間思いのケイチ君がお手本示さなきゃダメだね。
Kind of proving a point here.
あれだけ大きなお家に家族3人で住んでるんだっけ。じゃあ空き部屋なんかいくらでもあるよね。余ってるお部屋いくつかさとこちゃんに分けてあげればいいじゃない。
She's not like the words she's saying aren't like super mean, but it's very clear she is pissed at Keiichi right now.
それでめでたくさとこちゃんの悩みは解決。
And how naive he is.
あら何これでもう終わり。あっけない話だったね。はいはい解決お疲れ様。
My goodness.
じゃあもう今日はいい？私帰るね。ランランラン。
God.
今日は久しぶりに宝探しにでも行こうかな。昨日まではずっとさとこちゃんのことが心配で全然遊ぶ気になんかならなかったし、今日はどんな宝物が見つかるかな。はなんか言ってよ。私だけ喋りずくめ。
God dang. Now he knows how it feels.
黙ってんじゃないわよ。聞いてんの前原圭一。
Even the cicadas seemed to cower in fear. Rena, her shoulders bobbing up and down, and me, who had forgotten to breathe. Mion, whose face had gone completely pale, and Rika-chan, who was keeping silent as if nothing had happened. The atmosphere in the classroom grew tight and stiff, and it petrified us where we stood. Rattle. The sound of the chair as Rena sat back down after having stood up finally allowed everyone present to take a breath. Rena had shown me just how much I'd hurt Mion.
レナが怖いのです。
Yeah, she is. After a few moments, Rika-chan cut into the frozen air.
ごめんねリカちゃん。みーちゃんもごめん。ケイチ君には謝らなくてもいいよね。
Dang, she said, yeah, I'm not sorry, Keiichi.
ああ、ごめん。めちゃくちゃなこと言って悪かった。
I guess you
さ
got
っ
the
きの
point.
あれ、私に言ってたの？みーちゃん睨みながら言ってたから、私てっきりみーちゃんに言ってるもんだとばかり思ってた。
Rena had such strength that you wouldn't have imagined it normally. She really... That was wild, but I respect that she stuck up for Mion like that, right? And, like, pointed out, like, he really is just pawning this problem on other people, and when they won't help, acting like, you know, they're assholes, they're spineless, right? And then he never once considered, like his own situation and how he could maybe help, right? Like, jeez. All I did was spout terrible things as a wave of violent fury passed over me. I couldn't contend with her.
ミオン、ごめん。頭に血が上ってた。
Come to think of it, I didn't understand what had gotten me that riled up. I thought of myself as Satoko's Nini. Certainly had good intentions. That I'd thought about it a little harder than everyone else, and yet...
いいよ。私こそケイちゃんが一生懸命悩んでるのに、あれはダメこれはダメばっかり言って、ごめんね。私も悪かった。
Mion rubbed away the tears at the corner of her eyes with her fists and apologized as well. I don't know about this. We bowed our heads to each other and looked down without glancing at the other. Doesn't feel like much of a real apology and forgiveness happening there. I mean, the apologies might be real, but the forgiveness maybe not so much. Someone, I don't know who, he heaved a sigh. Satoko being tormented had been known about since last year. How had the tragedy back then saved Satoko? Oh, these are the dangerous thoughts I was worried about. How had they brought it to an end? Right. In the end, nobody could do anything. All they could do was bear it patiently and wait for those agonizing days to end. That's right. The one who had brought an end to those terrible days was some crazy drug addict nobody knew. On the night of Watanagashi last year, their mean aunt had been beaten to death, but it hadn't been done to save Satoko or Satoshi. Right. It really was just a coincidence. Yeah, sure. Coincidence. Definitely 0% chance that Irie sent them. 0. Satoko's friends, who needed to do something for her most of all, could do nothing. The incident may have been a tragic one, but from Satoko's viewpoint, it was nothing less than a miracle. Yes, a miracle. A miracle one could only wait for.
待つしかないのかよ、俺たちには。
Not for evidence of abuse, not for something that minor.
何をかな。
奇跡。
No one made fun of me for using such a crazy word. We couldn't come up with any solutions, so it was the only thing we could do.
無力なんだよ。私たちは。
That one word Mion dropped was the finishing blow. It was hot. My body was sticky with sweat. The worst month, June. What a messed up situation. That conversation was obviously really something. I'm really worried about Keiichi. I really think he's going to get... I really wouldn't be shocked if he takes things really far here. Right, I don't know. I was starting to think it, like I said earlier, but like, I wouldn't be shocked if he ends up killing in this chapter. Perhaps he'll kill Teppei, right? The uncle. Thinking it would free her, right? I don't know. I mean, it could easily just make things worse, right? It feels like he's been, like, fully indoctrinated into that sense of, like, Hinamizawa and unity, right? Which in itself, that's not necessarily a bad thing to feel unity with your village, but, like, I don't know, that unity is dangerous here. Something in the air, maybe literally. Oh, man, that whole argument, right? The way he lashed out at Mion, that's what was so concerning, right? I mean, you lash out at your own friend like that, who's to say you're not going to lash out even worse at somebody that you don't like, right? In fact, it's quite likely, or quite possible, quite likely even, you know? Man. Rennet really did a good job at putting him back in his place, though. He kind of deserved that. And it kind of did call into question even more, like, Keiichi's family, right? I don't know, right? That idea that, you know, some other rich family is here with a big house with plenty of room, right? Makes you wonder, are they, like, do they have, like, money like that? If so, why, right? Are they, like, I mean, they said the mother was, like, from some big family, apparently. Kind of shocking that Keiichi doesn't seem to know this, right? Guess we just move on for now, though. I walked forward quite a ways, then turned right where the rice fields ended. I'd never come here before, so I had no idea where to go. I got lost several times, so I may have taken quite a long way around. Maybe I should have gone back home and got my bike first. It would have made everyone else worry if I asked them. So I asked one of our other classmates where Satoko's actual house was. The house was originally her family's, apparently, not their uncle's and his wife's. Their house had been bigger, so they had taken it for themselves. Right here. Several houses all in a line. Over there? I was visiting Satoko's house, but didn't particularly intend to meet her there. I didn't mean to spy on the enemy, her mean uncle either. Maybe I just wanted to be a little closer to her. That's her Nini. Pretty words. I didn't know if they were true. If what Tomita-kun and the others told me was right, it'd be this house. Oh, this is definitely the one on the title screen. Okay. When I recognized it, my feet grew heavy. What did I come here for? My motive for coming here was absurd. When Mion had said at the end that we were powerless, it made me sort of frustrated. I just wanted to do something, anything other than waste the days away praying for a miracle. That's what made me come here. But that was all. Even if I were to witness her uncle actually tormenting Satoko, what could I do? Would I act like a comic book hero, punch the guy in the face and take Satoko away with me? And then live together somewhere far away? That was ridiculous.
俺は無力だ。
The cicadas' voices, raised in chorus, sounded like they were scoffing at me. As though they were saying that if I couldn't do anything and wouldn't do anything, then I should go back home. I heard a car approaching, so I got out of its way. But the car stopped right behind me, its horn honking shortly once. Annoyed, hadn't I gotten out of their way? I looked behind me, and a familiar face was looking at me out of the driver's seat window. Hello, Obishi, I'm assuming.
監督、
No, it's Coach.
こんにちは、前原さん。こんなところでお会いするとは本当に奇遇です。お家は近くなんですか？
Me being here wasn't normal. Just as I considered somehow giving him the slip, I noticed Satoko sitting in the passenger seat.
サトコ？
Satoko got out of the car and began unloading a lot of groceries from the trunk.
買い物の帰りに偶然監督にお会いしたんですのよ。送ってくださるというのでお言葉に甘えたのですわ。
I mean, she's clearly lost all the pep in her voice.
自転車でこんなに買い物をしたら運びきれませんからね。
As Coach spoke, he pulled Satoko's bike from out of the back seat where they'd put it. The grocery bags were big. There were 4 of them. They all seemed to be packed full and very heavy.
この袋、セブンスマート？おいおい、自転車で行くにはちょっと遠すぎないか？
I looked at the bags and saw that they were filled to the brim with sake bottles, snacks they'd eat with sake, and boxes of cigarettes. Their weight was one thing, but their contents were nothing less than luxury items.
監督のおかげで助かりましたわ。ちょっと坂道は辛かったですから。
Satoko gave Coach a smile filled with gratitude, but it was incredibly awkward and even heartrending.
サトコ、この買い物、今晩の晩飯ってわけじゃないだろ？
Not exactly.
当然ですわ。私、お酒なんか飲めませんし、おつまみも嫌いですし、タバコなんか吸うわけ。
He made Satoko go to a distant store by herself on her bike, so she could buy dumb shit like this? What was the uncle doing right now, anyway? He must have been working up a good sweat at this very moment if he needed to send Satoko out by herself, right? If not, then how much had Satoko suffered for no reason? I hadn't intended to voice my feelings, but they may have made it into my face. Coach might have noticed because he clapped me on the shoulder. And like you can't, dude. Just then, one of the house windows clattered open, and the face of a vulgar man, the very sight of which made me immediately avert my eyes, emerged from within it. There were no self-introductions necessary. My gut told me that this was the uncle in question. The first thing out of his mouth should have been words of gratitude for Satoko.
サトコ、缶のガスかけっぱなしで出よったんだ、この。
ごめんなさい。でもすぐに買いに行けって言ったから。
やかましいわ。せっかくの銀座台無しにしよってん。どうしよったんじゃ。
ごめんなさい。ごめんなさい。ごめんなさい。
This is terrible. This is so terrible. Keiichi needs to keep his cool, dude. And he's not going to. Satoko miserably apologized over and over, bowing again and again. She could be perfectly described as a small animal. I had no idea what was happening. Satoko finished shopping for all this heavy stuff that wasn't even for dinner. She only managed to come back because she ran into Coach and he drove her home. She hadn't been found by him. She'd surely still be by herself, panting and moaning, pedaling her bicycle up that steep hill. What was with those words, those horrible, sleazy words that he said to Satoko? And what country's dictionary did it tell him to say such things to a young girl who just finished shopping? My anger, of course, wouldn't reach him. The uncle displayed no interest in me, instead shouting at Coach.
おや、入江の先生じゃないですか。こんにちは。そしたら先生も上がっていきますか。もうオーラスですからすぐ入れますよ。ピンのワンツー、何でもありで。
Oh, it's a gambling den too. Nice.
いえ、遠慮します。さとこちゃんとは偶然お会いしたんで、ちょっとお送りしてあげただけです。すぐに失礼します。
That's a really weird place for a comma.
そんな、ちょっとぐらいやってってくださいな。先生お金持ちじゃないですか。
Trying to hustle you. I didn't even understand what her uncle and Coach were talking about, but I knew one thing for sure. None of what he just said had been to thank his Satoko in any way.
さとこ、とっととカキも持ってこんかい。ビールも冷めてもうた。冷蔵庫から冷えてるの出してくれな。
てっちゃん、娘に厳しすぎや。もうちょいいたわらんとかわいそうやで。
あんな娘にゃ、兄貴んちにいた頃からそうでよ。甘やかすと親の言うことをなんも聞かんやっちゃよ。
それよか、てっちゃんの妻だぜよ。
椿さんリーチしちゃったで。
おお、悪い悪い。なんね。椿、あんたまたリーチかいな。
It looked like it wasn't just her uncle. Some of his friends were over. Hey, wait. What was he... No, what were they doing? Flinging rude words left and right. Making Satoko go shopping for your beer. What were they doing?
町からおじさまのお友達が来てて麻雀やってますの。お友達のお夕食もご用意するように言われてますのよ。
なんだよ、それ。
Mahjong? He called his friends over for Mahjong? They were too busy playing, so they sent Satoko to buy them a crapload of booze from a faraway store. And the first thing he said to her was how she left the gas on? What the hell? What the hell? What the hell?
何やってんだよ、あいつ。
Keiichi, you need to relax. You're just gonna make it worse, right? Like if you like, and that's the terrible thing. He's just gonna make things worse right now, right?
麻雀ってそんなのに遊びほうけて、さとこにこんなのを買いに行かせるのかよ。
Even though Coach was listening, he pretended he wasn't. There was a line of heavy-looking shopping bags lined up on the ground next to the trunk.
さあ、前原さんも手伝ってあげてください。ほら、男の子なんですから。
監督、こんなのまかり通っていいんですか？こんなの絶対に。
Coach pretended he hadn't heard that violent outburst either. When I thought about it later, his reaction might have been the best thing he could do in that situation. It was.
私も2つ持ちますから。ほら、前原さんも持つのを手伝ってあげてください。
This is exactly what he had wanted to avoid. The bags were packed to the brim with bottles of sake and bar snacks. They were so heavy and so filthy, so unfair. They weren't just heavy in terms of weight. They made me feel mortified. Nothing could have been heavier than that.
ケイチさん、無理しないでいいんですのよ。私も持ちますわ。
Satoko mistook my biting back the humiliation as grimacing under the weight and offering to help.
バカ。
Offered to help.
俺をなめるな。
Satoko would never look down on my physical strength in the slightest. Ugh. Dude, this is...
監督も
I hate seeing
すみ
this.
ませんわね。
This is terrible.
重いでしょ。
No, not at all, answered Coach, smiling vaguely. Coolly. But I and I alone knew. Coach was an adult, so he just knew how to keep his feelings from showing. There was even more anger than I was feeling, burning deep in his eyes.
いや、重いですね。
Ugh. Shit. Shit. It wasn't very far to the doorstep of Satoko's house, but the bag squeezed my palms and started leaving red marks. Fury welled up in me, and the back of my throat stung. But even if it all came gushing out, it wouldn't solve anything. So, just tightly gritting my teeth was as much as I could do.
本当にありがとうございますですわ。監督もケイチさんもおかげで本当に助かりましたでございます。
After we carried them to the back door, Satoko said that was enough. Occasionally we'd hear the repulsive laughing of her uncle and his friends from within. My insides would seethe. I knew they weren't ridiculing us, and that was why it made me so mad. They made Satoko shop for all this heavy, selfish stuff, and then ignored her and laughed amongst themselves as they pleased. It was deeply aggravating. Of course, Coach had to have felt the same way, but he accidentally let his feelings slip onto his face. It only caused Satoko more worry. He knew all that and spoke coolly, as if to say he didn't care.
いいえ、ささやかでもお力になれたなら幸いです。
Jesus, man.
お手伝いできそうなことがあったらいつでも言ってくださいね。
This is terrible. I know I keep saying that, but this is just hard to watch.
ええ、お気持ちだけでも本当に嬉しいですわ。
That he feels that way. Those words were sad. Satoko herself was sad and resigned that we could only help her so much. But she was right. No matter how much Coach or I want to help Satoko, this was as much as we could do. I felt absolutely ashamed at not having the power to help her any more than this. Burning, boiling emotions were bubbling up within me and rising into my throat. Trembling all over, I almost started to cry from my fury.
俺も力になれることがあったらいつでも力を貸すから頑張れよな。
I wanted to at least, for those trite words, saying that I'd help her whenever she wanted.
ええ、ありがとうございますわ。わざわざこうしてここまで来てくださっただけでも嬉しかったですわ。
Satoko seemed to have guessed what I was doing in a place like this, when my house was in the opposite direction from school.
さあ、もう行った方がよろしいですわ。
Yeah, probably.
今は酔っ払ってますから、どんな難癖をつけられるかわかりませんわよ。
She felt guilty getting us involved after we'd helped her, because she wanted to be the only one to suffer this misfortune. That's how it looked. It hurt. I handed my supermarket bag over to Satoko, and then I noticed on the back of Satoko's hand, there's something that looked like a bruise.
おい、サトコ、このあざ、どうしたんだよ。
Might not want to be as loud about that. I knew as much as anyone else how transparent that sounded. I didn't need to hear it from Satoko to know how this bruise came to be. I'm gonna make excuses.
階段で転んだ時にちょっと打っただけですのよ。
That's how it goes.
気になさらないでくださいませ。
嘘だろ。
Coach nudged me in the back, and then he put his index finger to his mouth to chide me for being so loud.
本当にありがとうございましたですわ。では明日、学校でお会いできるといいですわね。
The fact that she has to say I hope.
そんな話してないだろ。
Keiichi, you gotta drop it.
その手のあざはどうしたって聞いてるんだよ。
Shut up. The evening glow finally got to a point where I could see the other concealed oval-shaped bruises and traces of swelling on her neck and her legs and other places too. I mean, like...
階段から落ちたんですの。
That's the thing. It's unfortunately really common in this situation for the kids to make excuses. The very moment my violent, rampaging emotions were about to burst their way out of my throat, I found my mouth being tightly clamped down on. Good call, Irie. Coach was pressing down on my mouth from behind, wrapping around me tightly with his hands. Because of that, I couldn't say anything. I could only groan, which I did. That was all I could do. I needed to expel all the magma sitting deep within me, because otherwise I'd surely explode into a million pieces that very moment. So I groaned. From my mouth, from my whole body, all heat fell in drops from my eyes. I groaned and groaned. I groaned to the point of exhaustion. I wrung absolutely everything out of myself. Even having lost my voice, I was still wringing it all out.
気持ちはわかります。わかりますから前原さん、今だけこらえてください。お願いですから、前原さん。
Endure it for now? And then what, huh? What would happen to her, to Satoko? Her body and mind were wounded. She was being made to suffer like this. Can you not even let me howl in vain at it? Is that it, Coach? Are we this powerless? So powerless that we can't even fucking scream from the bottom of our hearts? The voices of the Higurashi made me calm down. I didn't know how long it had been. Satoko abruptly gave a slight bow.
ありがとうございますですわ、ケイチさん。
サトコ。
今、ケイチさんが本当のニーニーみたいに見えました。
This is terrible. Like, I'm having a hard time watching this. I don't think this game has actually had me close to crying until now, right? This is... I mean, hell, the game just made me cuss. I'll cuss on this channel now. A little bit, maybe. This is fucked up. Like, seriously. Seriously. I mean, like, you know how messed up it is to see a child being abused. Like, you think you know that, right? Unfortunately, I'm not having to see this in real life, right? Just even in a game, right? Just seeing all of this, seeing how powerless everyone is, it's terrible. It is terrible and awful. Goodness.
私の本当のニーニーはいなくなってしまったけど、私にはケイチさんというニーニーがいてくれる。
そうだ。俺がお前のニーニーだ。お前が辛い時絶対に助けてやるから。ニーニーがサトコをきっと助けてやるからな。
Satoshi Hojo, you fucking idiot. If not now, then when? Satoko, she's never been in more pain in her life. If her Nini doesn't save her now, then when will he? Why did you run away? Why did you abandon her? Why did you leave Satoko behind? You don't have any right to call yourself Satoko's Nini.
俺は逃げないからな。
え？
絶対に逃げない。サトシみたいにお前を見捨てて逃げたりしない。
That's really messed up. Saying that is really, really messed up, because like if he's like actually dead, which he might be, that is God.
絶対に俺はお前を見捨てない。
I respect the sentiment, but outright saying that. Slip. Tears trickled down from Satoko's eyes. And then she narrowed her eyes into a smile.
さよなら、ニーニー。
Satoko took her right hand and awkwardly waved to me.
大丈夫ですわ。今のニーニーので、私、いっぱい力をもらいましたから、大丈夫。明日まで頑張れますから、大丈夫。だから、今日はさよならでございますわよ。
There was no way that I could say, bye-bye, see you tomorrow. And then from inside the house came a throaty, disgusting voice. I was gonna say, they're gonna get pissed at how long she's taking.
サトコ、はよ乾きも持ってこんかい。
さあ、ニーニー、早く行ってくださいませ。もう、私は大丈夫ですから、早く。
行きましょう。前原さん、これ以上はかえってサトコちゃんに迷惑をかけます。
Yeah, as in it's gonna get her more abuse.
監督、ニーニーのお家はちょっと遠いんですの。申し訳ございませんが、送ってあげていただけます？
ええ、わかりました。
Coach grabbed me by my collar, and with strength I couldn't have imagined him having, started dragging me away. And I, unable to oppose him, started getting farther away from Satoko. Dude, this is terrible. She waved her hand to us, expression still dark, and disappeared through the back door. Coach got into the car first, then turned around on the narrow path and brought the passenger side door around for me.
前原さんの気持ちは痛いくらいにわかります。いえ、前原さん以上にわかるつもりです。
Probably accurate.
でも、今この場だけはこらえてください。あなたの心は確かに伝わりましたから。
Yeah, I think it'd be hard to miss that.
だから、こらえてください。でないと。
もう分かってます。すみません。さっきはありがとうございました。
I meekly got into the passenger's seat. The car accelerated quietly. Satoko's house grew farther and farther away in the rearview mirror. Made a wide turn, and then I couldn't see her house anymore.
え？あなたのお家、そんな遠くなんですか？ 学校の反対側じゃないですか。
I didn't bother to reply. I would have been hard pressed to give him an answer as to why I was at Satoko's house. Coach didn't say anything more either, for a while. The two of us were silent, the only sounds from the gravel spraying over the road as we drove. I remembered how Rena said things were different than last year. At the time, she had Satoshi with her. Satoshi protected Satoko, so that less of the sparks fell onto her.
でも今はサトシはいない。
はい、残酷ですが、それが事実です。
Coach seemed to understand what I really meant when I said that.
悲しく、あまりに残酷な話ですが、
Dude, yeah, no kidding.
私たちの決意や努力、尽力には限界があります。
It sounded like an excuse, but he was right. Even if Coach and I wanted to be people Satoko could depend on, that was all. It ended at the front door. No matter how much I shouted that I would be her Nini, no matter how much I shouted that I wouldn't abandon her, no matter how much Satoko called me Nini, I couldn't do any more than that.
サトシは一体どこに行っちまったんですか？
Right. Satoshi was another story. Her actual brother, Satoshi, he was in a position to protect her far, far better than we ever could. That was the cold, sad truth of the massive gulf between Satoshi and us.
今頃、どこでどうしているんでしょう。
Satoshi left home. I didn't know why. Maybe it was because of Yashiro-sama's curse, or he disappeared or something. In any case, he wasn't beside Satoko now. At the time Satoko needed him to protect her most, he wasn't here.
どうして今ここにいないんですか？一番守ってやらなければならないこの時に。
お社様のたたりがどうとか家出したとしか言えません。
ある日を境に帰ってこないって仲間が言ってました。妹の聡子に書き置き一つ残さずに家出を。
サトシ君はコツコツとアルバイトをしてたんです。聡子ちゃんが当時とても大きなぬいぐるみを欲しがってましてね。
Stop! Stop! They keep making it worse.
結構いい値段らしくて、そのためにアルバイトをいろいろとしていたらしいんです。妹思いの兄でしたからね。おじ夫婦のもとで不憫な生活を強いられている妹に少しでも立派な誕生日プレゼントを贈ろうとしているんじゃないかってみんなささやき合っていました。
In the end, he didn't use his savings for a birthday present for Satoko.
サトシ君がいなくなり、警察がいろいろと調べたら、サトシ君の貯金が当日すべて本人によって下ろされていることが分かりました。方々をいろいろと調べた結果、その貯金を資金に東京の方に行ったんではないかということになりました。
So literally any basis for any of this?
東京？
And how would he have like reforged an entire new life without any trace?
何しに？
家出としか言いようがないじゃないですか。
自分が逃げ出すための資金をコツコツと貯めて、そこまでは勝手ですよ。でも聡子を置いてくことはないじゃないですか。同じ家出するなら聡子も連れて行くべきだった。
Even now, Coach was still calm. He wasn't trying to pour any oil on the fire of my anger at all. He just waited until my anger naturally subsided. I mean, you kind of raise valid points. I'm really still not sure how much I buy what Irie is telling us. After listening to gravel being crushed under the wheels for a little while, Coach spoke abruptly.
察してください。置いていかれた聡子ちゃんも同じ考えに至ったんです。
I'm a burden on my brother, and that's why he abandoned me. He didn't take her with him when he left. How terrible must Satoko have felt, being betrayed by the brother she loved so much.
でも聡子ちゃんはとても強い人でした。もちろん親しい友人たちの支えもあってのことでしたが、ああして笑顔を取り戻すことができました。
I recalled how Satoko had spoken of Satoshi so brightly when I was eating dinner with her and Rika-chan a few days ago. At the time, I didn't think any more of it than how pleasant their sibling love had been. But now that I did think about it, I realized it was like she was peering into the distance from atop a pile of tragic perseverance.
サトシ君はきっと帰ってくる。その時までにお荷物じゃなくなった自分を見てほしいって。
聡子はお荷物なんかじゃないですよ。あいつ 俺なんかよりよっぽど生活力はあるし、大抵のことは何だってできる。そりゃレナやリカちゃんなんかと比べれば劣る点はたくさんあるかもしれないけど、そこいらのやつよりよっぽど一人前ですよ。
Now, that's probably because of her circumstances too.
サトシ君がいつ帰ってきてもいいように、そういう風になれるよう努力した結果です。
Yeah.
涙ぐましい努力があったんですよ。
Well, she lived with Rika-chan, while Rika-chan taught her how to handle everything flawlessly. Also that she could welcome back Satoshi at any time, so that she could show him she wasn't ashamed.
で、そのサトシはいつ帰ってくるんですか？
I asked Coach, but knew he wouldn't be able to answer. In any case, Satoshi ran away. He left Satoko and ran away from Hinamizawa. Someone said that when you leave Hinamizawa and run away, Oyashiro-sama's curse gets you, right? Then, it made sense. Satoshi running away and his disappearance, that would obviously mean people thought it was the curse, right? And they could smile, as though it were his own fault, as though he got what he deserved. Hey, Oyashiro-sama, whoever you are, Satoshi didn't vanish because he ran away. You demoned him away with your curse, didn't you? If that's not what happened, then I won't forgive you.
サトシはいつ頃逃げ出したんですか？
I mean, this is really like getting into that exact mindset of Rena, really, right? Like, if you ask me, right? Like, it's like, arguably, you hope he got demoned away, right? Because the alternative of him just running away and abandoning Satoko is worse, right? Like, it's harder to accept.
去年の綿流しのお祭りの夜、おばが異常者に殺されて、その数日後のさとこちゃんの誕生日にです。
Of course it was on her birthday. Why wouldn't it be? This is just like a misery sandwich.
サトコの誕生日に？
Bang! I slammed my hands on the dashboard in front of me with all my might. Satoshi, of all the days, you could have chosen to run away. Their aunt just died a few days before, didn't she? All your days of suffering were about to end, weren't they? You were just about to start thinking about a new life, weren't you? It's wrong to be happy about someone dying, but for Satoko and her brother, her birthday had come at a critical turning point. Their mean uncle had fled town, and the siblings would be left alone. They should have been able to be happy about that, on Satoko's birthday. Satoko was probably waiting for her brother to return the whole time. Waiting for her brother to return, when he never did. Waiting with bated breath for her brother to return, her hopes and dreams of a new life to come growing ever larger. But no matter how long she waited, he didn't come back. Didn't even contact her. Satoko, trembling in anticipation of a great present, just when would she have to face the cold, terrible truth? Satoshi, you fucking idiot. I could feel my blood rising to my head in my anger at Satoshi. I was frustrated. I was aggravated. I couldn't forgive him. Satoko still respected and adored her brother, yet he so heartlessly betrayed her. Such a person wouldn't just come back. Now, when he was most needed. Yes, no one would protect her. Not even her real brother Satoshi.
だから、あなたがニーニーだと認めてもらえて嬉しかったです。
え？
私もさとこちゃんの幸せを祈る一人ですが、社会的立場があり、日中は仕事をしている身です。私がさとこちゃんのために割いてあげられる時間は少ない。でもあなたは違います。学校で生活を共にし、さとこちゃんやさとしくんとも年はほとんど離れていない。あなたは自分ができることに限りがあると思っていますが、それでも私よりはずっとさとこちゃんに手を差し伸べられる場所にいるのです。だから私の分までさとこちゃんの力になってあげてほしい、そう願っています。
そんなことは監督だって。
もちろん年季のある私だからこそできる助けだっていろいろあると思います。同じようにあなたにしかできない助けだってあるということです。
That is very true.
私たちは互いにそれを全うすべきだと申し上げたいのです。
Was that a little too complicated? Coach added that, but I shook my head in response. When I heard him say he had job skills, it reminded me that he was an adult, in a different position from all of us. Maybe I should ask him about it.
監督は法律とか詳しいですか？
いえ、平均的に疎いですが、何か。
Yeah, Cap. I thought back to when I argued with Mion and the others about Satoko. Our children's argument had only left us with the conclusion that we had to wait and see. But what would an adult think?
児童福祉法でしたっけ？児童の安全を確保するために緊急措置として親子を分離させるという方法があるそうです。
緊急措置？じゃあすぐに聡子をおじの元から救い出せるということじゃないですか？
It's not gonna work.
聡子ちゃんがそれを望まないかもしれません。虐待されている本人が避難を望まなければ弱いでしょうから。
And the person being abused will typically, make excuses.
聡子が望まない？
It's like her only remaining family. It could be that too.
どうして？
Coach didn't answer me. I didn't know why I didn't know why he didn't. It was clear as day that Satoko's uncle was being violent and treating her like a slave. So then why? I clamped down on my frenzied emotions and waited intently for Coach to answer, but he never did. It wasn't like he was pretending he hadn't heard me. If I had to say, it was more like he wanted to explain, but couldn't put it into the right words.
聡子ちゃんは多分そういういじめに耐えるのを試練だと考えているかもしれません。
試練？変な宗教じゃあるまいし。
ご存知と思いますが、サトシ君は聡子ちゃんをずっとかばってきました。聡子ちゃんもずっとサトシ君に頼ってきました。甘えてきたと言うべきかもしれません。
I'd known for a while that Satoshi had always protected Satoko from their aunt and uncle. But that was his duty as an older brother, not something to worry about.
それがトラウマになったかもしれないんですよ。
You think? My face win? I think realistically, yeah, that definitely traumatized her. Like, if we're gonna be serious. And I don't think there's much doubt about that. I don't know how you could go through that as a kid and not be extremely traumatized by it.
自分が兄にもたれかかりすぎたから、兄が自分を嫌ってしまったんではないか。
And unfortunately, I could definitely see that. And for Satoko, the current situation was a retelling of the story of a little over a year ago. But this time, Satoshi wasn't here.
だから、誰にも頼らずに、自分の力だけで試練を乗り越えたい。そういう力を身につけなければ、サトシ君は帰ってこない。そういう考えになっている。
I could buy it.
と、私は考えます。
Hard to say for sure, but it wouldn't shock me. Now that he mentioned it, Satoko never said a word about how hard it had been before. I figured she was being threatened not to talk about it, but...
みんなと相談して、児童相談所とかに通報すべきかなんて話をしてました。
聞いてますよね。昨年も福祉士さんがサトコちゃんのところに行ってるのは。
はい。結局様子見で余計にいじめられたって話も。
あれ、サトコちゃんが自分で通報したらしいんです。で、その結果、余計いじめが水面下へ移行してエスカレートした。
Yeah, sounds about right.
サトコちゃんに降りかかるいじめも増え、それをかばうサトシ君の負担も著しく増えた。
ひょっとしてそれ通報した自分の責任だなんて思ってるんじゃ。
That's probably exactly what she thinks. Coach nodded quietly.
多分、サトコちゃんに通報の話をするととても嫌がるか。サトコちゃんに内緒で通報したとしても、福祉士に対して自分は虐待を受けていないと言い張るでしょうね。
Satoko always acts tough and doesn't readily admit defeat, so I could imagine that easily.
一応、児童相談所には裁判所の許可も当事者の許可も一切不要で緊急措置ができる強い権限があるんだそうです。虐待が公然の事実なら、サトコちゃんが否定しても身柄は強制的に保護されるでしょう。それはサトコちゃんにとっては負けを意味するものなのかもしれませんが。
That's so messed up.
勝ち負けの問題じゃないですよ。
I mean, we get that, but being abused, it doesn't really leave you in a normal mindset.
サトコは現実に。
話を折りますが、身柄が保護されると養護院等の施設に送致されます。そうするとですね、そこで暮らすことになるので、つまり 引っ越しということになります。ですから学区変更で転校にもなります。
転校は仕方ないです。それであいつが保護されるなら。
聡子ちゃんはその辺の事情も知っています。
But she probably doesn't want to leave her friends.
だからますます保護を望みません。
どうして？
あの家でサトシ君の帰りを待つのが聡子ちゃんの生きる理由だからですよ。兄に捨てられ廃人同然になりかけた少女が何に生きる理由を見出したか、あなたのでなく聡子ちゃんの価値観で考えてあげてください。
Yeah. I felt like he was trying to confuse me with that hard to understand, roundabout way of talking so unique to adults. The point was that I couldn't do anything about Satoko wanting to stay in that house, and that I should watch until she gives in. In the end, no matter what I said, Coach himself was saying to wait and see.
俺はわかりませんよ。
はい。
俺は本当に聡子が危ないと感じたら誰の意思も聞かずに通報します。その結果聡子は不快な思いをして俺を最終的にはそれが聡子の幸せにつながると信じます。
Coach turned to me and gazed fixedly into my eyes. It was written all over his face. He was shocked at what such a young kid had said.
どうしてあなたはそこまで。
Because he cares about her own well-being. Coach, no, rather, normal adults, might not have understood. So I taught him the creed and the values that I believed in.
聡子は俺の仲間だから。そして俺は聡子のニーニーだから。では理由は足りませんか？
I stared at him with a will strong and unbreakable as steel as his eyes betrayed a tiny bit of unrest.
いえ、足りないなんてことはありません。
We were silent for a little while until finally, Coach said only that.
誓ったじゃないですか、俺たち。
すみません。
聡子を絶対に泣かせないって。
We made a vow on that day of the barbecue party. I didn't think about it hard at all, but Coach and I still made a promise. We would never let Satoko cry. Coach gave a dry grin of regret, immediately apologizing for not remembering. One way or another, when he grinned like that, it made me think that his enthusiasm for saving Satoko was a tiny bit smaller than mine. Kind of shocked that he forgot that, given how recent that was. Guess maybe it didn't mean a ton to him. He lightly hit the brakes, making a skidding noise, and my whole body suddenly fell forward.
ひょっとして前原さんのお家ってあれですか？ああ、前原屋敷が前原さんのお家だったんですね。
Yes, that does check out. Before I knew it, we were almost to my house. Case file 31. Let's read what that's about. I mean, we can probably guess. December 1st, 1981. Prefecture Juvenile Welfare Division Report. Do not view, do not duplicate. Case 31, November 20th. Satoko Houjou, blank years old. Residence, blank Hinamizawa Village, Shishibone. 1. Consultation circumstances. Anonymous telephone SOS of child abuse. 2. Abuse situation. Anonymous claims that a female child is suffering physical abuse by adoptive parents, her guardians. 3. Family structure. Circle marks abuser. Abusers. Adoptive father, adoptive mother, older brother, child in question. The circle is on adoptive father and mother. Note, in June 1980, the child's parents died in an accident, and she was given to her uncle on her father's side, her father's younger brother. 4. Child Consultation Center's response. On the day of the anonymous telephone consultation, the center called the child's school and asked of her situation. The next day, the welfare officer on duty visited the child's home and heard what they had to say. Both adoptive parents agreed to the center's coaching, contacted anti-abuse network in the city. As part of the suggested coaching, a district welfare officer and officer in the area began visiting for coaching at fixed intervals. The scrawled note below is stapled to the report. Related information from former official Mr. W. related to 1977 document D23 number 44, refer to. Ask Chief Investigator F from the city's education consultations offices. He is well informed about it. What was that bit at the end? Okay. So it seems in a way that this is somehow connected. The abuses, like they connected it to something else there right at the end. Let's pull that back up. Right, scrawled note stapled to the report. Related information from the former official, Mr. W. A 1977 document, D23 number 44. We don't really know who Mr. W is. Trying to think of anyone that I could think that is. Like, there's no one that really comes to mind right now. I'm probably just blanking. For the 1977 document, so that would have been several years prior, right? Because what year was this? Oh, I guess I could just 1981. So 4 years prior, so that would have even been before the Watanagashi incidents. So yeah, we don't know what was going on with that. Okay, so let's talk about this chapter. Wow, this was messed up. I mean, this was just so hard to watch. I mean, this chapter was more or less, we learned that Teppei's back. We learned... We tried to... Let me think about this. We learned he was back, and then talked with our friends, right? Minus Satoko. And Keiichi was desperately searching for solutions, right? And he had like a really angry outburst at Mio, right, for not helping. He called her spineless, right? Said she like had no humanity, right? Called her an asshole, right? Seriously lashing out. Rena kind of served him with the same thing. But I wouldn't be shocked if that leaves a permanent rift in the Mio and Keiichi relationship in this chapter. But wow. So I mean that scene was already crazy enough to witness, right? But it was the scene at Satoko's house that is just, it's heart-wrenching, seriously heart-wrenching, right? Seeing the abuse, right? Hearing that, hearing Teppei, right? Like the way he treated her, the things he was making her do, right? It's terrible. Satoko clearly can't handle it. And how could you, right? How could you? It's just not right, you know? It's just not right. But this is what she's being forced to go through. Like I said, during it, seriously, I was close to crying. This game hasn't really had me close until that moment. That scene, like, that is... I don't even know what else to say about it, because you, like, seriously, like, you just have to watch it. Like, it's terrible. Right? Seeing Satoko that way, right? After how happy she had just been. And Keiichi is not taking this well, right? Just like earlier, he was kind of lashed out, he had an angry outburst. Irie was there to quite literally silence him. Hand over the mouth kind of silence. Because, I mean, all they would do is make it worse, right? That's all they would realistically end up doing. God. Satoko doesn't deserve this. Straight up, she just doesn't deserve this. I mean, no kid deserves this, to be clear. I'd hope that's obvious, but... Jeez. It's hard to find things to say. I just keep going back to how terrible it all was, and I don't think you guys need to hear me say that for the 10 millionth time. Some other, I guess, important things. A car ride home. We talked with Irie. Actually, before that, even. We kind of had that moment with Satoko where she called us Ternini, right? We kind of like straight up said, we won't abandon you, right? Like we will help you however you need, right? And I wouldn't be shocked if that ends up called upon, or even if it's not called upon, Keiichi takes it upon himself, right? Like I said earlier, I was kind of worried that, you know, he might get shanky, right? The little thing right at the start of this chapter certainly didn't help. Made me think that was the case. Or like, it certainly made it more clear that was very possibly the case. They don't say he will kill someone, but intent. And that's very likely referring to Keiichi. So I'm kind of thinking he might end up like killing the uncle. Which, you know, whether you like the guy or not, right? Whether it would free Satoko or not, probably won't end well for Keiichi. Probably not. So that's one of the main worries right now, is that he's going to take that like to its extreme. In the car ride home, though, with Irie, we get a lot of insight about Satoshi, right? He was working those jobs. He's still saying that he pulled the money and tried to go to Tokyo, maybe. There's no real evidence that he went to Tokyo. Is there even real evidence he pulled the money? Right? I don't know. I don't know if it's been said before. Of course, to make this all more, like, even more awful, like I called it a misery sandwich, they just had to make his disappearance on Tatsuko's birthday epic. One thing I do want to point out, they mentioned that this is only a few days after the disappearance of the aunt, or not disappearance, the murder of the aunt, excuse me, that's when he disappeared. And I kind of can't help but relate that back to, obviously, Keiichi, right, how that happened to him, right, and I also can't help but think to, like, that 3 days idea, right, like, you know, if it was only a few days, right, a 3 day like, kind of like, demoning away, right, Onikakashi, right, like, we assume he was the one who was demoned away, right, maybe that's why the time frame lined up like that, and that it wasn't all intentional, and that just Satoko is about as unlucky as it gets. I guess that would be the easier to accept outcome. It really would be. I don't know what else to say, right? This chapter really picked up. It really picked things up. I thought this was a phenomenal chapter. Heart-wrenching. I'm really looking forward to seeing how this continues, but I think we're going to go ahead and wrap up for now. I'm really excited to play again. I will need to keep playing this game, right? I'm very excited to see how this chapter plays out. I suppose that'll be all for this episode. Next episode will probably be out 3 days from now. Whenever that comes out, I hope to see you guys there. Peace.